Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
What's up, everyone? Freddie the Pizza Man here, host of the Pizza Man podcast. Now joining forces with ChristopherMedia.net. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, the Pizza Man podcast. And, of course, find all the podcasts on ChristopherMedia.net. We talk Detroit sports. I bring on guests, passions, opinions, all for Detroit sports and more. We even talk pizza. So thanks for tuning in and spread the word.
From Asthma Core Studios near Detroit, Michigan, it's Unregimented.
Gangsters, what's up, guys?
And now, here are your hosts.
Welcome to Unregimented number 236. I'm Chris.
I'm Aaron.
I'm Rich.
I'm inspirational speaker Tony Robbins, and you too can change your life.
No, you're not. Who are you really?
No, I'm Todd. Hi.
Hi.
I'm trying to do a Simpsons Open every week, just to throw people for a loop.
Oh, should we go hi, everybody?
Hi.
So we got cut short last week because of technical difficulties, and there's some things that we wanted to cover that we didn't get to last week. We were just talking off air about the story of the Boy Scouts accepting girls. So where do we start with that?
Well, I heard an NPR story, and they interviewed the president of the Boy Scouts and a representative from the Girl Scouts. And the way I had always read this issue or this story as presented was this was forcing the Boy Scouts to do something they didn't want to do. And
oh, really?
Yay! You know, we're gonna have
they're doing this because of public pressure.
Yeah, I mean that was the way it was always presented because it was all. If you ever heard anyone talk against it, was, you know, this is traditionally boys. They have the Girl Scouts. And I'm like, well, why would the Girl Scouts want to join the Boy Scouts, first of all? Let's be honest here. That's what I was wondering. This was the first story that addressed that. And the way it addressed it, the issue that was brought up kind of shocked me, which is the Girl Scouts are pissed that the Boy Scouts are taking girls. They don't want to lose membership to the Boy Scouts.
Right. And
when I asked a coworker, that it was a Girl Scout. I said, what did you do in the Girl Scouts? She's like, well, basically sell cookies. And I mean, they when it's cookie time, they shill hard for that. And then she said it was mostly like cooking, sewing, almost like home ec crafts, stuff like that. And I said, so you didn't go camping? You didn't do any of this? And she said, no. Now, Chris says, do you say your niece, Chris?
No, my sister was in Girl Scouts. They went camping like once a month.
So my guess is
I didn't even do that in Boy Scouts. I rarely went camping.
See, I'm starting to think that this is a troop by troop issue. Then,
yeah,
it is.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Well, anyways, she goes, I would have loved to do all that stuff, but I couldn't join the Boy Scouts. And once I realized that's what this was, I'm like, well, fuck the Girl Scouts then. That's on the Girl Scouts. Yeah. You cannot offer your customers, if you will, a service they don't want and get mad when they go get the service they want from someplace else.
Right. No. Why don't they just merge?
That's what I said. But we know, I mean, because it's fine that there's a Girl Scouts. And yes,
right.
Yes, now that I understand that Girl Scouts want to do and learn the stuff that Boy Scouts teaches, I have no problem with that. My problem is when these fucking blue-haired, dyke-spike feminists get in and start talking about, well, you need to have diversity and blah, 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 blah. Okay, well, then why don't we merge? No, girls need their own safe space. But you boys.
Why don't you open your doors to boys then? If it's all about diversity and letting everybody in and commingle, well, why aren't the Girl Scouts letting boys in to learn how to sew, cook, and sell cookies? There's been no chatter about that. I love cookies.
Because then we'd be consistent, and we don't do that anymore.
I'd have made a sexy bitch. I'd have been a sexy brownie.
In the pre-show, just before we came on here, before we hit the record button, I was saying that I had a couple of blind spots here because I haven't really paid too close attention to this. And for some reason, for whatever reason, I had it in my head that they were being forced to do this somehow. And I went and did a little research on this, and there is no court cases that I can find where anybody has ever sued the Boy Scouts
Right.
for membership to let girls in who's ever won. They've all lost because the Boy Scouts are a private organization. They are allowed to set their own membership standards, rules, however you want to look at it. And they always have been. The Girl Scouts were pissing and moaning about this. I found an article from, I think it was October or November of last year, long before this whole story came along that they're finally going to let girls in, because the Girl Scouts somehow got wind of the fact that the Boy Scouts were getting close to doing this. And it's exactly what you said, Rich. I think what it comes down to is that the Girl Scouts have become so monolithic and haven't evolved as girls have evolved over the generations. This is not the same type of... The girls these days aren't the same as they were in the 60s or the 50s. They want to do this stuff. They want to be, out doing more stuff that guys do. And the Girl Scouts didn't evolve. So it left an opening. This is basic capitalism. The Boy Scouts had an opening. Well, let's let them in. They can go hang out with us, and we can combat and battle our plummeting membership numbers by just poaching girls. It's simple. It's not anything to do with court. It's not anything to do with, there's a small element of like the feminist movement here, but I think it's embracing it. I think it's getting on top of that wave on your little corporate or capitalist surfboard and riding it. Hey, well, we can turn this to our advantage. We'll make it look like we're going to, jump on board and let girls in. It's capitalism. Yeah, I wish I had done the research on this, because my initial reaction, I think like a lot of people in the country when I read that, was that they were being forced to do it just simply because of the environment and all the rhetoric and everything. That's not the case at all.
And the reasons I hear for people saying they don't want girls in the Boy Scouts is, oh, you're going to stick a bunch of horny teenagers in the woods together? What's going to happen? Well, Jason's going to come kill them. That's what's going to fucking happen. Right?
They're going to fuck because you shove them together in a building for 4 years.
Yeah.
For 12 years. Try that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. If teenagers want to fuck, they're going to fuck.
Right.
All right. They made, I think in 86, maybe, I think 86, the Army went co-ed with basic training.
Uh-huh.
As it stands now, the Marine Corps is still the only segregated boot camp or basic training. And I can tell you from almost all my friends that were in the military, were in the Army, they fucked in co-ed boot camp.
Oh, I can speak to this from direct experience.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
I went to boot camp in Orlando back in 1989, and that was a co-ed boot camp. Now, we were not in the same barracks together. Obviously, they had female companies and male companies, but it was funny because you go to mess hall and you're so isolated and away from the opposite sex. I mean, it happened with on both ends of the spectrum here, where you would go into the mess hall with the girls. They'd be in their companies, and you'd start making eye contact without even saying anything. And you'd see the same girl because you all eat at the same time. You'd see the same girl the next day, and you'd be just eyeballing each other, doing your little kind of silent flirty thing. And they give you this thing called Liberty, at least in the Navy, where they give you a couple of days out here and there, right? And when they did, man, people were fucking like bunnies. They didn't even know each other. They had just made eye contact in the mess hall and maybe sent letters back and forth. Somehow had gotten their name and address passed to them so they'd send mail. And then Liberty came along, boy, boom, fucking.
Now here's the thing. Those are 18, sometimes in some cases 17-year-olds who are in the military. We're talking about in the Boy Scouts, that's from like what, 13, 14 to 17? I mean, these kids are most likely, if they want to fuck, they're going to fuck anyways. So that to me is just that knee-jerk, our knee-jerk Puritan roots raising its head up. It's like, come on, look, they're going to fuck, period.
The 14-year-old that wants to get out there and fuck is not joining the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts.
Well, now the girls are there, shit.
Maybe they will, yeah.
You want to know how our home ec class worked in high school?
Hey, this used to be a real sausage party.
Our home ec class worked this way. Tons of guys joined it to the point where it was like 20 guys and 5 girls. Because they all thought that's where the girls were going to be.
Right.
You know, I mean, look, we're 3 of us have been in bands. Todd understands this dynamic because you were a DJ, you were in the public eye. If you get the women to come out, the men will follow.
Yeah.
Period.
Oh, yeah.
Anywhere you can get one woman, you can get 5 guys.
Exactly.
Why do you think they have ladies' night at every bar in the country? It's the same thing.
Yeah, there's no guys' night unless it's like at the Rainbow Room, and then it's most likely like a theme, like Bear Night or something.
Yeah, this whole thing, it just dawns on me that, I got sucked into this too, and I'm not excusing myself from this, but this whole girls in the Boy Scouts thing has been, you can see the bilateral reactionaryism on both ends of this. The conservatives are all pissed off because they're assuming, or they want to believe, that the Boy Scouts are being forced by the overzealous PC culture to let girls in. And on the other side, it's, oh my God, we won a huge victory. We forced the Boy Scouts, feminism, woo, me too. All the, I mean, it's such bullshit on both ends. It's
a progress. Yeah,
it's a simple fucking business decision that people are just grabbing onto to hold up their banner and say we won. It has nothing to do with any of you. Nothing. You didn't force anything to happen. There's no court ruling making the Boy Scouts do a fucking thing. And vice versa. For the conservatives, you're not being forced. They were not being forced. They chose to do this. It's business. Declining membership. Let's get the girls. Sweet. Done. That's it. But it really doesn't. It does speak to that, though, doesn't it? The culture and the environment we're in now, that it's either black or white.
It's all about winning.
Bad. Yeah.
And meanwhile, and this is, you know what? This is kind of a perfect example of our society. Yeah. Decisions are made about money, and they keep us divided and fighting over fucking us versus them.
Right.
And they keep making more money off of our division.
Well, because we try to apply these like personal terms to organizations, like thinking that, business is good or bad. Like, because a business decides to go green, quote unquote, they want to advertise themselves as eco-friendly. That's a money decision more than it is anything else. Mm-hmm. There's nobody at the top going, I don't care what it costs. We are going to be, using less, fossil fuels in our business, and we're going to be promoting eco-friendly products. No, it's, even if it's, at a loss for the investment, they expect to make that up on the back end by all the people who just want to buy those eco-friendly products.
Want to be associated with them.
Only ever a business decision.
That's exactly right. The perfect example is Subaru. If you look at their advertising campaign.
Yeah. Very safe.
No, they're just, what is it? Love. It's what makes a Subaru. And you've always got these progressive themes to it. And environmentalism and all this other stuff. It's not about the company doesn't give two shits about environmentalism or hippieism. They've chosen to market themselves to that demographic.
Yeah, they just want you to buy a fucking car.
Simple.
This is where I agree with Jordan Peterson on one of his viewpoints of what's going on in America. And he calls, cultural Marxism. Marxism has to, by nature, make corporations the bad guy. You always have to, they have to be the bad guy. Now, because we have a bunch of hypocrites in this country who are like, I'm a socialist. Well, it's easy to be a socialist when you make $20 million a movie. It's real easy to talk about how everybody should fucking share everything when you have armed fucking security guards and live in a gated fucking, not community, compound. So what's the new way to demonize corporations and all businesses? Well, they only make their decision, they're racist. They're racist. No, you're far off the mark. I don't know many corporations that would go, you can make $2 billion if you hire this black woman as your CEO, or you can make $1 billion and hire this white man. That company's going to go send Condi on over. That's period. These people they care about green. Now they may be racist in their heart, but there's tons of racist people in their hearts. Shit, you're never going to stomp that out. That's just ridiculous. But it's a way to demonize and go, well, you're doing this, but what you really mean to do is this, and this is why you're doing it, and it's ulterior motives. It's the same thing with this, what is it, unconscious bias training and shit. You're racist, but you don't know you're racist. Well, then I don't give a fuck. Who gives a fuck? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like, I just don't care.
The better question is, does anyone else around you know it? Like, if I don't know it and nobody around me knows it, it's not a problem.
And why does it, honestly, why does it need, I know this is going to sound really, and perhaps it's because I've been, tiptoeing around the IDW too much this week, but why does that have to be, it's not illegal. to be a racist. It's not illegal not to like someone.
Yeah.
It may be fucked up and it may be immoral, but it's not illegal. It's not something that you're going to change either. You're not going to legislate that away. You're not going to tell someone you need to change, you need to stop being racist. And they're going to sit there, oh my God, you're so right. Thank you. No, they're going to say, fuck you. They're probably going to dig their heels in a little bit further.
That's why when that, was it Fresno State professor came out with all the Barbara Bush shit, I said, oh, so we're allowed to hate things again? I can go back to hating something without having an ulterior motive? Like, I can't stand that bitch over there.
Oh, you're white male, Rich.
You hate women. You know what? White devil all day. I don't give a shit. I can't care anymore. I mean, it's ridiculous. But seriously, Bill Burr used to, well, I don't know if it was a bit, but it sounded like one he was doing on Opie and Anthony I heard years ago. He was like, why can't we hate things? Why is that not allowed anymore?
It is.
What is so wrong?
How do you disallow it? Maybe that's the question. It's not so much why is it that we can't? And we can. We most certainly can. How are you going to disallow that?
It's kind of like saying, how can we be less horny?
Right.
The thought is, here's what I love. Here's the parallel between the SJW and the conservative Christian, conservative Muslim, whatever the fuck religion you want to put it in there. They think that if you make it taboo to speak certain things, that somehow that's going to trickle down and change the core person you are. So if you can't say, middle-aged black women are the rudest fucking customers to wait on, and if you don't say it for long enough, then somehow you're going to have a Care Bear moment, and your chest is going to open up, and hearts and butterflies are going to fly in, and you're just not going to be racist anymore.
Right. Well,
and it's the same way
people whispering the word cancer, because if you say it out loud, you might get it.
Exactly. Right. And the Christians are like, don't talk about sex with children, and they won't have it. Really?
Well, you and I have.
Do you want to go to Alabama?
Small disagreements on religion, Rich. One part of religion we will never have a disagreement about is heresy. It's the same thing. You're talking about heretical speech. You're going against the doctrine.
And that's why on my Facebook page it said political beliefs. I said ideological heretic.
Yep.
Fuck them. It's the only thing I can think of. Everything I say offends somebody at this point in my life. So
no, and all that
if
does.
If I'm a pariah, then so be it.
Ask the church how heresy laws and heresy torture and all the other deterrents to heresy they've tried to throw out there over the last few hundred years. Ask them how it's worked. All it does is push shit underground. It doesn't end anything. It just takes it out of view. People will say it when you're not there. They're still going to say it. They're still going to fucking think it. You just don't have to hear it. That's all that's happening. And that's, my friend, that's exactly what's happening these days with the SJWs. They're not, they all think, I don't want to go too far down this road because I don't want to go off on this for 45 minutes, but they all think that they are this huge super majority of the population because they're only surrounded by like-thinking people. Right? And what's happened is nobody's engaging them anymore. Everybody's either afraid to engage them with something that's off script or out of scripture, or they're just sick and tired of hearing their bullshit and ignore them. They're still there. The needle's not moving. They're just not engaging you anymore.
Well, that's
you become white noise. Congratulations. Oh wait, is that racist? Just regular noise.
Become non-binary.
Yeah.
Rainbow noise. Whatever.
Yeah, the stuff, it's not working. It is not working. And I was talking a couple weeks ago, I guess maybe we can come back to it if you want, but I'll transition a little bit into the intellectual dark web. Because I was talking a couple of weeks ago about this shift. Remember that? This sort of, I didn't really know how to articulate it, but there was something bubbling up that I found on Twitter through Quillette and a few other sites. This is exactly what I was talking about. I didn't know it had a name. I didn't know anything about it. I just saw it. But this is exactly what I was talking about. The intellectual dark web is what they've termed it. I hate the name, and I hate that it even has a name, but this is where I'm at. This is it's a direct result of people getting sick and tired of being forced into the same dialogue restrictions within this narrow lane of proper acceptable discussion where you can't have a real conversation about real issues. Because if you do and you go off script and you commit heresy against the liberal doctrine, you're basically jumped and pummeled rhetorically. And so people are abandoning that. And they found people like Jordan Peterson, and so I think the Weinstein brothers, Brett and Eric. Is Eric Weinstein? Does that sound right? See, I'm not even that familiar. I just read their stuff.
Yes, yeah.
There are a lot of people out there that have been purged from institutions because there's a couple of husband and wife who were forced out of a university, I think in Canada, because they stood up against some sort of a PC activist display. I can't remember exactly. Again, I'm not that familiar with this stuff. I just read it. And so they moved away. They were purged from these institutions because of their their non-liberal beliefs or their batshit, non-Green Tea Party beliefs. And they found like minds to sort of congregate with and have a real conversation about topics that these days have become heretical. And they found other people, and other people are now finding them. And moving
the beauty
away
of it is that they're also not as much as the people who are afraid of these people getting together and talking about these topics want to paint them as alt-right racist and every other fucking ist and ism they can throw on them. They're from all over the political spectrum.
It's ridiculous. I mean, have you guys read Jordan Peterson's book or dipped into it, the 12 Rules thing?
I have not. I mean to, but yeah.
I haven't read it, but I've read parts.
There is nothing alt-right about that book that I've seen.
No,
nothing.
It's the extremely biased left media and the left-leaning media who paints him as the father figure to incel men on the alt-right.
It's not like there's another bucket to put them in. They can't put them in their own bucket, and there's only one other bucket. Yeah. There's only us or them. It's become the reactionary. If you're not with us, you're a Nazi.
You know, if you're anywhere to the left or to the right of us, you are a Nazi. You're a neocon. You're an alt-righter.
You know, when you said a couple weeks back that you via Twitter you had gained a glimmer of hope, et cetera, I was kind of like at the time, I'm like, I don't see it, but I mean, I'll keep an open eye on for it, and you know, let's hold a good thought and move forward. And then I saw something in the last couple of days. I don't know if you guys know who Jonathan Pie is. He does
Pie?
Jonathan Pie, yeah.
Like how's this spelled? P-I-E? P-I-E.
It's a character that this social commentator, I guess, / comedian does, kind of along the lines of like a British Lewis Black. Okay. Now, this gentleman classifies himself.
I always imagine all Brits are like Lewis Black, so anyway.
This gentleman classifies himself as a democratic socialist.
Yeah.
Very left-leaning. He was just on one of the BBC talk shows railing against the left for taking free speech away from everybody. For making something like, he goes, if you hate me because of the color of my skin, I'd rather you tell me that. Then we can have a discussion about it. But when you ban discussion on everything and say you can't say this, you can't say that, how can we expose these ideas, drag them into the light, and show them for the frauds that they are?
Yeah.
That's John Stuart Mill.
Or have a way to hone your argument to actually convince somebody that you're right.
Now, this is a far left democratic socialist saying this, and he got no flack for it hardly. There was a couple hardcore SJWs that came in and started throwing around you could tell they didn't know who he was in the comment section. Started throwing around he's an alt-right mouthpiece, and people just laughed their asses off. And we're like, go to his YouTube channel and watch that. You tell me that's an alt-right person. That's a person that even leans slightly to the right. You're retarded if you can say that with a clue, without a smile on your face. But he said the exact same thing that people like Sam Harris, people like Jordan Peterson, people like Joe Rogan, any number of people who've been now labeled alt-right has said, and they get savaged for it.
But yeah, I mean, that's the problem with this term alt-right. It's a very small group of people that identify themselves as alt-right. But we've applied that to, not we, as in you and I sitting here, but the left has certainly applied it to anyone who voted for Trump. Has to be on the alt-right.
Well, at the heart of all propaganda is the us versus them. You have to pit people against each other, and this is the perfect way to do it. I mean, think about it. They've screamed racism, homophobia, Islamophobia so much that even Nazi. When I see someone go Nazi, I just laugh.
Right.
Unless they're wearing a fucking swastika, red suspenders, shit like that. Get me the fuck out of my face. They're not a Nazi.
But there's two sides. There's two advantages to the idea of seeking to understand somebody that you have a difference with. I mean, certainly one side is the compassionate side, the one who wants to seek compromise. The other one, it's just from a strategic advantage to know your opponent, to know their argument, to know how to pick it apart. And certainly just saying that what you're saying is not worthy of a platform and no one should listen to you is no way to have any grounds to pick apart their argument and show people why they may be wrong.
It's John Stuart Mill. It goes back to that book I keep imploring you guys to read on liberty. It's not only that, it also, if you take the right attitude in having a conversation and dialogue with someone you disagree with, you may find something in their argument you agree with that you can incorporate into something new. Not everybody's wrong about absolutely everything. Just because if you're a liberal, if you have the assumption that everything a conservative says is wrong because they are in another camp, you're part of the fucking problem. There are good points on both sides. And normally, a normal human being, if you're having a rational conversation on higher than a third grade level, they're going to have good points to make and things that should be considered. And that's completely out the window now.
They have to have good points because, I mean, what is your alternative? To think that person is evil? That person has no redemptive qualities?
That is where we are. That is Aaron, exactly where we are.
I forget what college campus it was, but there was a college campus where, Rich, help me out on this. It was where a Republican club got removed from campus because the Democrats on campus or the left people on campus felt they were being marginalized simply by the existence of this group.
Yeah, they went in with cell phone cameras undercover, trying to get them to catch them saying something that could get them thrown off campus, and then someone noticed someone was recording, and all hell broke. If this is the same incident, all hell broke loose. And then it turned out that like 3 or 4 of the people there that were attacking as Republicans were registered Democrats. They were like, "This is the only place we can come and have conversations about these subjects without what you're doing happening."
Right.
So, I mean, and it literally turned it. This is my new thing that's going to get. You want cheap dental work? Come see me and do this in my face, because this is something that I will die trying to kill you and knock your teeth out your face. This clapping every word in your face while they're talking to you. You do that shit to me, it's a night.
I am not a violent person,
I don't know what to
but I don't think I could stop from hitting somebody.
Exactly. And they were doing that.
Me either.
And like yelling at these people, and you're fascist and you're racist, and this is a safe space. This is our home. And this guy was just real calmly going, "This is a school. This is a place for exchange of ideas. This is not a safe space. Yes, you should feel physically safe here, and no one's going to harm you. If you feel physically unsafe here right now, that's your mental illness speaking."
I thought that was like part of what we understood about higher education. It was supposed to be scary. It was supposed to be, each time you advance to the next level in schooling, it's kind of a leap. There's a certain amount of independence and responsibility just in graduating into high school. Mm-hmm. But that idea that going away to college is you on your fucking own. Granted, your parents are probably always going to be there to bail you out anyway, but it should be scary. You should be confronted with things that you don't understand or that frighten you.
Yeah, when we were college age, I remember the push. It was painted as a place where you're going to be going here and you're going to be hearing all kinds of viewpoints because that's how the world is. And now it seems to be they're turning into echo chambers.
Well, yeah, we were talking about before the show. I know you shared this story with us earlier, but I guess I missed it. But the story about the U of M disciplinary code that ran into trouble because of what did they refer to it again?
Teams.
Yes, the bias response team. This sounds kind of bizarre to me. I'm trying to picture what this even looks like. This is like a bunch of old people sitting at a big long desk.
I'm just picturing a bunch of people with like multicolored hair jobs going, "We're from the internet. We're here to help."
Right. But I mean, their job was to police potentially offensive language on campus, right?
Yes. And not just on campus. I mean, I believe there's an incident log. And first of all, most of the incidents are internet based. Shocking. But yeah, and then you're supposed to provide restorative justice. That's supposed to be your penance if the bias response team contacts you.
Yeah, an example is, as a result, a student whose speech is seen by another student as hurtful to his feelings could be accused of bias. And they'd have to go through some sort of, where's the training part? It's basically, go to re-education camp and get your head right, basically is what they're saying. This is so
broad. I mean, how is bias not defined as I just don't like that guy?
Once again, you're not allowed to hate things. You're not allowed, and you don't hate.
Maybe I'm biased against him because he's slept with my girlfriend.
Well, I mean, let's take the word hate out of it. You're not even allowed to dislike things, to disagree.
Oh, is she
with
yours,
things.
Aaron? Is that your property?
But I mean, you're not even allowed to dislike things or disagree with things if they're on the left's 10 Commandments sacred stones that, Moses brought down from their temple or whatever. I mean, it's just, I've seen so many videos of students doing stuff on campuses that would have got us, when we went to college, thrown out of school. And no one seems to care. Because the majority of the students it turns into the mob mentality. I mean, you brought up Eric Weinstein, Todd, and when he told his story on a podcast, and he said, I'm not leaving for the, day without whites. I'm going to go to class. I'm going to teach my classes. I'm going to go about my day like a normal day. Like, students were openly threatening him in the hallway. You're going to have to go to the bathroom sometime. We'll catch you one-on-one.
Baseball bats.
That's a fucking threat to his safety. That's a crime. But you can best bet if Ted Nugent said some shit like that, or some right-wing student said some shit like that to that land fucking cow out there at Fresno State or wherever the fuck, all hell would break loose. He would be charged. This is the face of toxic white masculinity and terrorism and every other fucking thing. But because it's on the left and the school is ultimately going to cater to the majority, and the majority of those kids walk in there and they've had their heads filled up with their parents. They're either change of life fucking baby boomer kids, or their Gen X fucking parents have just filled their heads with this bullshit that life should be fair, and the way you think life should be is the way you need to make it. It's not the reality of the situation. And I can admire someone trying to change something for the better, but I got to pity someone who walks around going, the world isn't the way I see it in my head, so it has to change for me.
But, just like the Boy Scouts, this is a business, right? And it's the colleges, while they, for years now, we've had the right railing against higher education. I mean, Fox News is famous for it, talking about how this is just a liberal breeding ground. This is we're brainwashing our kids into thinking these crazy ideas. And these institutes aren't worried about that. They're more worried about the liberals being too scared to send their kids to the school because they might deal with something challenging that then forces them to, I don't know, maybe do some parenting and talk to their kids about something.
God forbid.
Oh, God. Maybe some of those kids might start learning trades.
So, yeah, I mean, they're bending over backwards to provide these safe spaces to, and probably ignoring a lot of behavior, like you were saying, Rich, that would usually get somebody kicked out of school because they don't want to deal with the backlash, because it's going to end up with less students, less people giving their money to that institution.
I wonder if
it's a business decision.
I wonder if student loans were a lot harder to get, to the point where parents had to pay for their kids' schooling. Because as it is now, your kid can go to a college, and get student loans and go into debt and get whatever fucking degree they want. And it really doesn't come out of your pocket that much. You might have to let them, like if they go to a smaller college, they might have to live at home. That comes out of your pocket. But the debt ultimately falls on the kids. I wonder if the parents had to pay for these educations and these kids were like, I got my master's in gender studies. They'd be like, not on my fucking dime, you didn't. I don't give a fuck.
Part of that conversation, Rich, is that system is broke. Because
Right.
real quick, Mandy has $100,000 in student loan debt, she could get more tomorrow.
Yep.
That's
Well, of
fucked up.
course. Yeah, because it's guaranteed. You can't file bankruptcy on it. They will find you and take if you are working and getting a paycheck and you are delinquent, they will just fucking snatch your shit. Straight up jack your paycheck. Thank you. Now go to work.
Or tax refund. I found that out one year.
Yeah, that too. So I mean, if you take away that to where these colleges don't have like automatic customers with money falling out their asshole that has been loaned to them.
Well, because I mean, it's a system that is showing diminishing returns too, right? I don't think that I don't have any hard numbers in front of me, but I bet if you plotted it out, you would see that it's, first of all, you're not necessarily guaranteed a job just because you paid for schooling, not necessarily a job in the field, and
supply and demand. You have flooded the market with degrees. You have devalued them.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, it's not. I'm not saying that it's like a useless thing to have higher education, but it's certainly not any kind of prerequisite for being successful in this country.
The problem is not higher education. The problem is you give these kids who have no understanding, okay, of how the rest of their lives and debt and everything else is going to work. And you say, now you can go to college and study anything you want. And they come out with bullshit degrees just as much as they come out with degrees that there's actually a demand for. You get kids coming out, with a degree. How many people, aren't we constantly hearing about nursing? We need nurses.
Sure. Always,
right? Then why do I know like 4 or 5 nurses who have degrees and they're like, I can't find a job worth a shit.
Right.
I can't even live if I don't have to pay, even if I didn't have to pay my fucking college loan back, I couldn't even live off of what they're wanting to pay me.
Right.
If we need nurses, that's not how you get them.
They can't make enough to pay for the daycare that it would cost them to go to work.
Exactly. And I mean, even if they don't have kids, it's just a married couple or something. God forbid. I mean, I'm thinking of a couple I know. You know, he has a very good job as an engineer at an automotive company, and that allowed her to work past that first couple years where I guess you're making jack and shit, and they didn't have kids. Only when she established herself and was making and could demand a higher salary, even if she left her current employer, did they have kids. But not everyone makes that wise of a decision at such a young age. How many people honestly that we grew up with had kids and never once thought, I can't afford this kid at this point. Nope, I'm pregnant. I don't believe in abortion. I got to have this kid. I don't know many people who had kids young who planned them is what I'm getting at.
Right.
And they make a decision that they don't even understand the repercussions and consequences of, because I've had friends say, well, when the kid's 18, he's no longer my concern. You think that's how parenthood works? The kid turns 18, you never see him again? What are you, a wild animal? Right. A feral cat? I raised you. Now get out of here. Right, I'll never see you
on
again.
Your 18th birthday, was just going to start throwing rocks at you until you leave town.
Yeah, what is this, a Shirley Jackson story? What the fuck? Yeah, I mean, to me, that's part of the problem. That's why you get these kids going in here who, it's not the real world, but they think they're in the real world. They're playing adult. You know, it's like my friend who said he did 14 years in the Marines, and he said the one thing the Marines did was allow me not to grow up for 14 years.
Yeah.
I could stay the emotional age I was when I joined the Corps. And I'm like, so combat and all that. He's like, take away all that. I'm talking about the fact that I could still live like a fucking 20-year-old kid at 34. I wasn't married. I always had a place to stay as long as I didn't mind living in a barracks type situation. I always had food as long as I could get to the fucking mess hall, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I'm like, I can kind of see it. Now, isn't that what college has turned into? But we're funding it with, when I say we, I mean the United States government and people giving college and student loans and guaranteeing them. Yeah. They're the ones funding it now.
Well, and it's partially that attitude of like, once they're 18, they're not my problem. Like, hey, they can't stay here anymore, so they gotta go somewhere. Right.
I've been out of high school 21 years. I know people that I went to school with that are still in college, and they started going after we graduated. Like, are you a fucking doctor yet? Like,
Well, I talked to.
it's going to be time to finish at some point. We're 40.
I talked to a coworker and I asked her about her music professor, and because God bless her, she's going for a music theory degree, and I'm like, I wish you the best. But
you're going to be like degreed and poor.
And I asked her, how old her professor was, and she said he's in his early 40s. And I said, have you asked him how he got to teach at the college that you're going to? And she goes, he basically said he was a professional student until he just had enough education to teach at the college.
Right.
He just kept going to college, and then he did the band thing, or I think he's more of a classical musician, so he probably tried to break into the classical music world, which is just as cutthroat as fucking any other part of the music business.
Oh yeah.
And decided I can't do it, so I might as well teach. That's not who I want teaching my kids, as someone who's been a professional student who has little to no real world experience, and telling them, oh, just keep going to school until you get a degree, that's considered good enough so you can do my job.
Yeah.
What are you, Van Wilder?
As an aside, I was thinking that the classical business might even be more cutthroat because you have to be actually competent. It's not about do they have a look?
Yeah, exactly.
This guy plays a mean cello. Oh, how's he dress? Has he got style?
Yeah, can we put him on a magazine cover?
Cello player monthly. Cello player for the practicing musician. Did we lose Todd?
I'm here.
Oh,
no,
okay.
Okay. Well, can we talk some international politics? Do you guys have an opinion on either North Korea or Iran? Both in the news recently?
I'll be honest. No, don't care.
Straight up. Not even on the radar. Well, I mean, we got, 3 hostages back from North Korea this week.
Yes,
right?
But what about those poor people in Iran now that we backed out of the Iran deal?
Oh, right.
That's the spin now.
Oh, and North Korea is only doing this because they want something.
Right.
Yeah, that's the only way we ever get anyone back from a foreign power, is they want something from us, and we're like, okay, give us our people back and we'll talk.
I would say the vast majority of the time, the only reason anybody does anything is because they want something.
Right.
Isn't that 100%. Called politics?
The only reason that you're standing up for a cause is because you want attention.
Another thing I saw is that...
or you want change.
A lot of people on the left were complaining about, the Pompeo visit a few weeks ago. You remember that he took off for this secret meeting. He flew over to North Korea, didn't tell anybody about it. Trump didn't mention it. They found out about it. Like, oh my God, what the fuck's going on? Blah, 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 blah. And now this. So obviously the guy was over there negotiating a release of these hostages.
Yeah.
And nothing. Absolutely nothing. Now, if this happened, I hate playing this, well, if Obama did it, I hate doing that to an extent, but imagine if Obama did it. Imagine if this had been done.
Saint Barack?
3 years ago. Oh my God, it would be the greatest thing ever.
Yeah, there was, they had, I forget who they were interviewing on NPR about this, somebody who had actual experience in foreign relations, and he was asked by the interviewer, so how much of this does Trump deserve credit for? And what a leading question.
Yeah.
We understand that none of this stuff just plays out underneath one president. These are, when there's big international moves, it's not because somebody stepped up and said, I'm not dealing with this anymore. Tear down that wall. Right?
Right.
I mean, I'll give Reagan credit. He said it. It happened. He was president at the time, but we all know that there was a lot more behind the fall of the Soviet Union than Reagan acting tough. But that goes for any president in any situation.
Look,
let's just give Trump the credit.
Yeah, there's a bigger. I mean, it's sort of I think it's a sort of a false comparison with the Berlin Wall and 3 hostages. That was a longer process that involved people like Jimmy Carter and even Nixon and the Cold War and all that. But
absolutely,
there's something here that there's something that is apparently good happening on that peninsula right now.
Right.
Okay.
Well, the argument though, people were upset over Mike Pompeo's visit. They're not going through traditional channels, and this is very unprecedented. And well, okay, but nothing else has worked. So
where was Obama's success over there, or Bush before him? Something's happening here. I don't know why. And I'm not 100% sure that I, don't think that there's some sort of nefarious dealing going on beneath the table. But I don't really care at this point. If North Korea is actually talking with South Korea, talking about getting rid of its nuclear weapons, and 3 hostages were sent home, I don't really see that. I don't see how this is a bad thing. Why can't you give the fucking man credit? Your guy couldn't do it. He did. Give him some fucking credit for it.
Right. He's either coming about because of his actions in part, or he's just taking advantage of a situation that's happening. Either way, he deserves credit.
What situation? I mean, what situation absent him is happening that wasn't there before him?
Well, I'm saying like maybe who knows what's actually going on inside North Korea or inside Kim Jong-un's head, that this could have just reached a point that has nothing to do with Trump being president, where the situation is untenable. He's afraid of his position of power for some reason, that maybe just he realizes that he has to start working with other nations, because if he continues to starve his own people, at some point they're going to say enough.
Well, I just had a thought.
Yes.
Does this mean the Fire and Fury comment worked?
No. Yeah, I was just thinking that. He was calling him Little Kim not too long ago.
I have to wonder if Little Kim or someone in his fucking court of jesters or whatever, we're just sitting around going, wait a minute, we hate America, right? Yeah. What's the best way to piss them off and divide them and get them fighting amongst each other? Give Donald Trump his way and watch them fucking rip each other apart over it.
Right.
I mean, it's right. You're telling me that this guy who thinks with his missiles that land in the ocean half the time instead of going where they're supposed to isn't petty enough to do something like that just to watch to kick the anthill just to watch the ants go fucking nuts? I absolutely do. I absolutely do.
I believe in Occam's razor as well. And sometimes the simplest answer is the right answer. Maybe he hit the right chord with the guy. Maybe he knew how to deal with him when other people didn't. I don't know. Yeah. That is the simplest answer. That he got it done. He just simply got it done. I don't know how.
I don't buy this. I think too many people think that like these people in power are like these evil geniuses. Who are like, whoa. I don't buy it. I don't buy it. These guys, these are people just like me and you. These are people with who are neurotic, who have hang-ups, who have mental illness, who walk around in a bubble, whatever, and they'll do shit just to fucking do it. I mean, he's already proven he's not a stable person.
Which one are we talking about?
Oon doesn't. Okay. Well, either one of them, really.
Since you have to ask.
I mean, honestly,
Trump said he was a very stable genius. Remember that.
Would you be comfortable letting either of them babysit?
Oh, no.
See?
I wouldn't let him cat sit.
Exactly.
I think I'd let Ivanka babysit me. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah.
She might be open to it because
she's going to be
come over in a diaper and everything, man.
Have you guys seen like the video clips of him trying to hold her hand and her slapping his hand away and shit?
Yeah.
Todd, you might have an opening, bro. I'm just saying, go for it.
Ivanka, not Melania, Ivanka.
Oh, right.
Oh, the daughter.
Yeah.
What about both of them at the same time?
Yeah.
You going to turn that down?
Yeah.
The sportsman's double?
Nah, I'm good. I'm going to go from Anna Kendrick to that. Come on.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were such a Michelle Obama fan. Is that your
where the
first
hell
lady
are you going? You're like you just crossed the median into the ditch, buddy.
Well,
I have no idea.
Okay, but to get back on track a little bit here.
No, I don't know. I understand exactly what you're saying. In a lot of ways, I completely agree with you that maybe they're just batshit, and maybe he's doing it just to troll us. It could be. Maybe play the divisive, let's tear him a little bit further into game. Sometimes, though, it's just the simplest answer. I'm just going to say that again. That maybe the two are they're both a little batshit. They're both a little nuts. Maybe they speak the same nutty language, and he got through to him.
No, I could see because it's like the two biggest bullies. It's like Mighty Ducks 2. The two biggest bullies on the hockey team become the Bash Brothers. Like the two biggest bullies meet each other and they find out they like each other more and they want to beat each other's ass. So they become like friends and you're just going, what the fuck just happened? We thought we were going to see like an epic fight and now this.
I feel like the simplest answer is just money. Like Kim Jong-un wants to be part of the global economy. Doesn't want to be ostracized, cut off. He wants an Apple factory in his country.
He wants
turning out American goods.
He could have done this with Obama.
Well, that's true, and I don't know what might have changed in the meantime. If my theory is correct, what may have changed his mind on that? But I don't know. I
don't know either.
Ultimately, here's the thing: it's probably a mixture of a bunch of. It's probably a combination of a bunch of different things. But I now that you say it, and I really stop and think about it, money, pussy, fear of death. Those are the things that really drive people to do shit that you would think they would never fucking do.
Well, and I think maybe there is a lot to be said for the idea that Kim Jong-un likes Trump, because it's not like, as much as they may talk about how, America's an evil nation, he eats the fuck up. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. He's eating up American culture personally. I mean, obsessed with American movies and whatnot.
Is that him or his dad?
This idea that Trump is almost like the ultimate ugly American. Maybe there's part of that like, hey, this is a guy I can work with.
Well, what explains the change in the last year, though?
Oh shit, this guy's crazier than me.
No, that's what I'm saying. Right? Maybe it is Trump. Maybe it's just because he likes him. He likes the fact that he can have their little Twitter battle.
Well, I mean, there is the fact that we now have a president for the first time in my lifetime that I consider it probably likely that would to throw a nuke to around, or at least really, really try really, 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 really hard to do it. I don't know if he would be allowed to in the end. I mean, it's not like the movies where he's just, pushes a button and the whole world comes to an end. There is a fucking process to it. But I don't think Obama was even fucking close to being the president that was going to throw a nuke at anybody.
Maybe this is a ploy as well. Here's another possible explanation. Maybe he just plays nice with Trump, thinking that Trump is a president who needs to find a war somewhere, right? So he can do that with Iran, and I'll make nice with him, and then things will go back to normal once Trump is out of office.
Well, that's going to really be the bellwether, isn't it? Is that when Trump, he's not going to be president for life, despite what a lot of liberals think he wants to do. When he's out of office. We won't
know until he's out of office.
Right,
what's really going to happen with
change, then we'll know. I don't know. I keep coming back. I started thinking about this a little bit over the last couple of weeks with the change in the rhetoric and the tone and the new come togetheriness between them and South Korea and Un and Trump, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. I can't speculate that much. I don't have enough information. I'm just glad it's happening. Because it wasn't too long ago that everybody was concerned that there was going to be a nuclear exchange of some sort between us and North Korea, or North Korea was going to nuke Seoul. And that's no longer being batted around. Yeah. And in fact, they're going the other way and talking about getting rid of their entire nuclear weapon program, getting rid of their nukes. I don't think I'm glad, I guess. And until there's some conclusive reporting or information as to why, if there was some ulterior motive, until I see the evidence for it, I guess I just don't want to speculate too much. I'm going to give the guy his credit, say, glad it happened, way to go. Glad we're not going to have a nuclear war, at least on the Korean Peninsula, and see what happens next. But I think he does deserve the credit, at least in the short term, at least until that stuff comes out. And then we can, then I'm willing to talk about it. But for right now, hey, way to go.
But you talk about it like it's inevitable. Like
eventually
we'll find out the ulterior motive here.
I leave that open to possibility, yes.
Right.
Yeah, because it is a drastic change between now and a year ago, and now and 6 months ago. So something happened, but I don't know what. So,
well, on the flip side, the situation with Iran seems like the exact opposite to me. This is like purely ego-driven thing of, Trump, while he's not able to explain why it's such a bad deal, has said that it is the worst deal in history. I don't really see any evidence of that other than it was in part brokered by Obama, and Trump just has the desire to wipe any evidence of him from history.
Right. I got nothing. I don't know what's going on. I really don't.
That is a good point you bring up, because one of the things that's been brought up in a few articles and pieces of news I've read is, and I'm surprised this really isn't brought up more, is how hard Trump has worked towards undoing anything he can possibly undo that Obama put into place.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, it really is like some epic levels of pettiness. Like it to me, I'm just like, wow, he really pissed Trump off. Trump was like, oh, you want to make jokes, but I can't be president? Yeah. Watch me take your job there. Now,
I'll walk that sidewalk with.
Now, all this shit that you put into place, watch me fucking tear it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll go along with it.
Some of these things aren't even that big of a deal. It's just like, I'm just going to undo it because I can, and Obama put it in place. I mean, that's the definition of petty. It's like, this wasn't a campaign promise. This wasn't something that's going to solidify his base or bring him new voters. This is just. I think this, if you're talking about the Iran deal, I think it was a campaign promise. No, I'm talking about overall the shit Trump has done.
Oh, okay. All right.
Like the, oh Christ, what was it? The mislabeled Obama phones. Obama phone, I'm gonna get my Obama phone. And it's like, yeah, well, you realize Reagan started that program, right? Obama just brought it into the 21st century by giving them smartphones because, well, where do you even go to buy a flip phone anymore? I mean, there's only so many Nokia bricks still working and around. I mean, besides, you can't even find a charger for one anymore. Like shit like that. I don't. And what is his? He wants to end the food stamps and start sending meals to people like rations almost. And it's.
Are they going to mail out MREs?
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, some of those are good. Some of those are garbage. But if you're on welfare and you don't have time in the morning to make the coffee in the MRE pack, you can just eat it. I mean, it's done every day. So I don't know, but I just shit like that. It's like, what? That is so petty. That is so petty to spend time undoing that. Like you're solving something. Like, oh, I've solved this problem. It wasn't that big of a problem in the first place.
But I guess why it's so far, it seems to be that it's not going to make that much difference. But Trump wanting to pull out of the deal with Iran. Iran hasn't really seemed to express any interest in breaking the agreement. That they're going to, and most of these sanctions that were against them are deals that they have with European countries that are going to remain in this deal with Iran. So they may suffer a little bit from American sanctions, but they seem to be wanting to stick with it. The fear here, though, is that like by pulling out of this deal, this just doesn't put us, it doesn't feel like we're going back to 2015 when this deal was being worked out and Iran was still pursuing a nuclear program. Kind of feels like we're going back to like 2001, especially with John Bolton hanging around again.
Oh God, yeah, I know. Caterpillar.
Because there's no talk about, again, what would be a better plan, what Trump would like to see, or even coming to the table with Iran again. But you better believe they have a plan for what happens when Iran decides to start producing nuclear weapons again, or at least start their program up again.
Thanks. There we go. I was in a cheery mood. Now I got to think about that. Yeah, that'll fucking. It's like cat shit in my Cheerios. Thanks, appreciate that thought. But I mean, it's true. It's a valid point, and once again, I'm not versed enough in foreign affairs and the nuances of it to really get very deep into this. But if it's going to accelerate Iran trying to restart or further their fucking nuclear program, why on earth would we make that decision that leads down that road? I mean, it's like, it's almost, I flipped to the Bill Hicks skit where he's talking about the U.S. is like the gunfighter and Shane throwing the gun at the sheepherder's feet going, pick it up. And when he does, he shoots him and he goes, you all saw him. He had a gun.
Right. Trump has no alternative plan for this. And when asked about his criticism of why this is the worst deal in history with Iran, his main point is that because it expires. Because it has an expiration date.
So let's hurry it up. Let's sprint to the expiration date instead of fucking take a slow, leisurely pace to it.
Right. Like, you open up your fridge and be like, this milk expires in 2 weeks? Fuck that
this milk.
Shit. Throw it away now.
That's the part that makes little sense to me. And I'm just like left scratching my head going, am I missing something here? Because I've yet to hear any type of respected from anybody on the left or right military mind come out and just enthusiastically co-sign on this. In fact, even
you should read the article I just sent you guys, because it's one of the architects of the deal under Obama was interviewed, and he says that it is a good idea to pull out of it.
Yeah, there was a lot of debate about that. I mean, it wasn't a universally embraced policy when it was implemented. There were a lot of people that, I think a lot of military people thought that it didn't go far enough. It wasn't enough accountability, I guess. Mm-hmm. If I remember correctly, it's been a little while, a couple of years since that thing came down. But I do remember that it wasn't something that was just celebrated.
Sure. I mean, is there a better way? Is there a better deal to be had? Maybe. But that's the problem. There's not a better plan being presented.
Right.
Well, one of the points of this article, though, is saying that they're trying to tie it to North Korea, and it seemed that apparently putting pressure on North Korea is going to work. So that's kind of the thought process here is, okay, well then let's try to do the same thing with Iran.
Well, Aaron, I think you bring up a good point. It's very un-Trumpian of him, considering that like he's the type of guy who's like always cheating on his wife with the next wife. For him to back out of something without having a fucking backup plan already in place and installed. You know, I guess that's what makes me wonder, like, okay, you can't take something away and just go, I mean, it's like quitting smoking. They say if you quit smoking, you have to find something to replace it, whether it be working out, sucking on suckers, chewing gum, something, whatever. You can't just take something out and go, okay, good. There's a big hole where that was. Now what?
Right, and I guess my bigger fear is not that there's no plan, it's that there's a plan that no one wants to talk about.
Mm-hmm. Let me ask you guys a question. My specifics on this, my memory is not what it used to be, so maybe it's failing here. Are we the only ones that entered into this deal?
No, I don't know all the details of it, but I know, I believe the European Union as a whole is part of this, as well as other nations.
So they've still got their dull molars intact enough to bite. The deal is still intact then. We just left. We just withdrew from it, sort of like the Pacific Trade Partnership thing, right?
It's the U.S., the U.K., France, China, Russia, and Germany.
And they're all still there. They're all still bound by that treaty, right?
Well, I mean, they're bound as much as any nation is, but when the U.S. pulls out of the deal, then it's hard to blame Iran for if they choose to break it.
Well, they can't do anything. That group of countries can't do anything if Iran violates the agreement.
I mean, they would just go back to the sanctions that they had before the deal.
So what were we supposed to do if they violated the agreement?
What is America supposed to do if Iran would violate it?
What I'm trying to figure out is what's changed as far as Iran and this agreement. We pulled out of it. What is it that we were bringing to the table that France, Germany, the UK, China, Germany, and all these other countries can't do that we could?
Removal of American sanctions on Iran, which is only a small percentage of the total sanctions that they were dealing with prior to this agreement from all the nations.
There's also the fact that they no longer have the trump card of the American military in their back pocket. Mm-hmm. I mean,
it means
that's why
the U.S. is going to be no longer buying Iranian oil.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and they'll continue. They'll probably just ramp up production for other nations.
Well, okay, fine. What about NATO and what about Israel?
Well, that's a good question. And Israel started lobbing missiles into Syria just today, I guess.
Israel ain't nobody to fuck with. At least on that regional scale, anyway.
These aren't the Mel Brooks type Jews.
No.
These are the Munich type Jews.
So I mean, see, this is. Maybe this is part of the plan that's not being talked about. Is like America pulls out of the deal. What were we saying? Israel starts launching attacks on Iranian forces inside of Syria, and then America steps in to support Israel, and that's how we get into a conflict with Iran
and beat them back. Yeah,
and make it look natural, like we're not war hawks. We're just doing our jobs.
Well, okay. Also, Aren't we producing oil here in America that we're producing so much we're selling it to other countries?
Selling it now, yeah. We're an oil producing country now.
and
on the global marketplace. Yeah.
I heard a few commentators say that's thanks to fracking. So is this like
that fracking was just for natural gas?
Yeah, that's what they said on NPR, and I'm like, I don't see how one connects to the other, but okay.
Or maybe we've got so much natural gas that we're able to sell off our oil reserves.
But I mean, to me, it's like, okay, so is this someone whispering in his ear? Fuck Iran. We don't need them for anything. We can do whatever we want. I mean, that just has me wondering, because if we were buying oil from Iran, and it wasn't that long ago, I remember 10 years ago, there was all this talk about we're at peak oil right now. Mm-hmm. Right now, we're at peak oil. It's all downhill from here. Blah 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 blah. The U.S. is going to have to go into even more debt to support their oil habit and all this shit. Now we're producing it. Now we're producing it in such vast amounts. We're selling it to other countries.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm connecting dots where they shouldn't be connected, but it seems like kind of a fuck you, I got mine power move.
It just seems I'm kind of taking this back to the Boy Scouts thing. I think in my head that maybe it's just an overreaction. I'm trying to figure out tangibly and practically what effect this has on that agreement. And if NATO and Israel is capable, outside of the sanctions you mentioned, of holding just as large or nearly as large of a hammer over Iran as if we were to remain involved. And if that's the case, what's changed?
No, very little. I agree.
Bunch of angry white people.
Damn, dude. What is that? Wow. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I don't know. I don't know enough about this. I don't claim to have a geopolitical doctorate or anything like that. But I haven't heard that addressed. There are still. It's almost like it's being talked about like we unilaterally made this agreement with Iran. Obama unilaterally, just us and them, made this agreement. But there are all these other countries that are involved in it. You don't hear about that. You don't hear how that's going to be affected. And it leads me to believe that if it's not being talked about, that there's a huge effect and this is just being overblown for propaganda purposes.
Right. Well, I mean, absolutely. If the U.S. pulling out of the deal with Iran was that damaging to Iran, then they should start up the nuclear program, right? What do they have to lose at that point?
Right. Exactly.
If they're not starting it up, then they clearly still have advantages to remaining in this deal with these other countries. So, yeah. It's probably not going to do a lot for the status quo.
Yeah.
It's pretty much it's one of the points of the article I sent you guys made is Iran kind of has equity built up with a lot of other countries that it's not going to just throw down the shitter because we've pulled out of this deal.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, and maybe this is once again just me coming out of left field, but I kind of feel like because we're Americans, we're here and we're raised in this country, we don't see things as a lot of other countries do. And a lot of other countries are probably thinking, who the fuck is America? The only people who have nukes who have actually used them twice to tell other countries what they can and cannot have nukes.
Oh, I've heard that a lot.
Rich, we're the good guys. Don't you watch movies?
But I mean, you have to try to stop and see it from just from not necessarily a country that we have contentious relationships with, but just from Sweden, just sitting there going, motherfucker, you've dropped 2 of them. Who are you to tell anybody that they can and can't have nukes? What's wrong with you? And when you look at it from that point of view, it's like, I mean, obviously we don't want fucking every fucking country in the world sitting on the nukes we have. But we don't even fucking need the nukes we have. And once again, maybe my mind's wandering, but what the fuck happened to the Anti-Proliferation Act or whatever the fuck? Aren't we supposed to be getting rid of our nukes? I haven't heard anything about that in years.
That went away. That
After, 9/11?
And I don't know who. I want to say that was Bush. Either Bush or Putin. One of the two. Somebody pulled out of that. Well, it's gone.
Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't exist anymore. But there's enough, I think, stockpiled at this point. I mean, the whole point of nuclear weapons, I guess the traditional aspect of it, you all know this, is the the deterrent. You attack us, we're going to destroy you as well. So nothing happens.
See, I always thought the point of nuclear weapons was it almost secures you a seat at the big boys' table. Because, hey, look, you have to deal with me because now I got fucking the exact same weapons you do.
Well, that too. I mean, in the traditional Cold War model, though, was we have just as many and more than you do. Therefore, we can kill you just as bad as you can kill us. So don't.
Mutually assured destruction.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's it.
I swear to God, I will kill everybody if you fuck with me. Yeah, I know.
That shit worked.
But you know what it makes me think of, not to totally go back to North Korea again, but it does make me think about how much over decades now of talking about America dealing with North Korea and how much they desire to be respected on the world stage, right? To be invited to the table, as you were saying.
Right.
And yet doesn't seem to be the tactic that's actually getting traction with Kim Jong-un.
It could very well be that he looked at Trump and Trump was like, look, if you want to play who's got the bigger dick as far as nukes go, you're going to lose. In your lifetime, couldn't.
I mean, that was basically what their Twitter war was about.
In your lifetime, you couldn't accumulate the amount that we have. Right. So stop. If you want to sit at the big boys' table, act like a big boy, put your big boy pants on, and come sit down and talk to us. There's other ways to get table besides waving a nuke in people's faces.
His acquisition of nuclear weapons, though, gave him a bargaining chip. It gave him something to give up in a negotiation.
Yes.
If you're going to engage in a compromise, I have this, so now I can give this up if you'll allow me to have a seat at the table.
And meanwhile, he could be totally bluffing.
Well, let's be honest.
I mean, there's a very high percentage that he's bluffing because the success of North Korea's nuclear program is very questionable.
Well, that's not what I've read. I think most intel people believe that he actually has the weaponry. He just doesn't have reliable means to deliver it.
Well, that's like saying
that, I'm stockpiled with bullets, but I have no guns. So what threat am I really?
Let me clarify. He doesn't have the means to strike our West Coast reliably.
I understand.
He can fuck with Taiwan. He can fuck with Japan. He can fuck with South Korea.
That's true.
I think he's got the capability for that.
I mean, let's assume that the worst and that they have everything we fear. He has to understand. He launches one. That's the end of North Korea.
And half of South Korea, likely.
Even if we don't retaliate you're going to be ostracized from the rest of the fucking world more than you are right now. Right. Even China acts like North Korea is like, oh, God, really? Yeah. I mean, it's like having a dumb brother that you have to provide for your entire fucking life because he's not dumb enough to be retarded, but he's just smart enough to get into trouble constantly. And you're like, oh, I just wish you had Down syndrome and you'd be happy folding the shirts at the Gap. Instead, you're out here robbing liquor stores. What the fuck's wrong with you?
Yeah,
that's how I think China sees North Korea.
China's never going to get involved. If it came down to a nuclear exchange, China is never going to get involved on that level over that little piece of shit country.
Well, I think China is giving lip service. They know they have a mouthy little brother who picks fights with people that are going to kick his ass. And so they go, leave my little brother alone. Come on, man. It's like taking candy from a baby. Come on, dude. He's stupid. He doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
That seems like how China views North Korea.
I don't know if this is an official policy of China, but my understanding was that if North Korea were to start a war with somebody else, that they would not back them. But if a war came to North Korea,
exactly, yeah,
then they would.
Yeah, if you start that with the SH, you better be ready to bring the IT. But if you come over here and fuck with them, then you got a problem with us,
right?
And if that's their stance, Lil Kimmy has to take a look around and go, I really don't have anyone in my corner for real for me to act a fool.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, and there's also this. At a certain point, just because the people in North Korea may have censored internet, not allowed to see certain things, and are given their version of their propaganda, he knows what's fucking going on. He knows the reality of the situation. I mean, we say he's crazy. I think it's because, like Dave Chappelle said, when you call someone crazy, it's a very comforting thing to do because you can dismiss them out of hand. That person's crazy. Doesn't matter what they say. And it allows you to ignore anything they say or do. And I think it's almost, he's probably pissed that people around the world are like, oh, that crazy, who knows what the fuck he's going to do. And he's probably thinking, I'm tired of being treated like that. I mean, if that's his goal is to want respect on the international level, he has to rise above throwing a temper tantrum. Because I mean, that's temper tantrums. They may get you attention, but they're not.
I'm sorry. Which one are we talking about again?
If you have to ask,
it's an evergreen.
Yeah. Well, I come back to it. I mean, you might be right about that. I fully acknowledge that. I don't know. I'm just kind of glad that it's sort of backed off. I mean, there's a part of me that I'm not even going to go there, but I'm glad it's happened either way. I find
it, Todd.
I know. I found
this is the demon on your shoulder. Say it.
No, it's fine. I find the change in tone and rhetoric, the U-turn that he's taken in 6 months, I find that highly curious. But other than that, I mean, I'm kind of glad that we're not having the same debates. Oh my God, we're going to have a nuclear war, right? That we were having, a year ago.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost impossible to just accept it on face value. But it's also a little entertaining to watch liberals kind of go crazy looking for the cracks in this.
It's fucking great. It really is.
They're like, this can't be right. There's something wrong here.
Yeah.
What happens if he gets
what Obama couldn't?
What happens if he gets a Nobel Peace Prize? Oh, Jesus Christ!
Oh, yeah.
Those things are like National Association Advancement of Colored People fucking honorary awards. Kid Rock's got one, and he's an alt-right dog whistle for racism. It gives a fuck about a Nobel Peace Prize at this point.
When Trump gets it, the liberals will give a very large fuck about it.
And they're the same people that care about the Grammys, which means they're functionally retarded.
I think they should nominate him for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It means about just as much.
Deducting Trump.
Yeah, the thing is that it's gonna be perceived as a prestigious honor that went to the orange baboon in the White House, the alt-right puppet, however you want to look at it. That's people that don't even care about the Nobel Peace Prize.
It's the worst sin of all, the normalization.
Oh my God, I'm
normalize
so fucking tired
Trump.
of that term.
Yeah, it's true though. People won't even know what the Nobel Prize is, but they have heard the word and they'll know that Trump got it and they'll be outraged. That's to answer your question, Chris. That's what's going to happen.
Duh.
I think honestly, like we should just
MSNBC is going to be like watching Lord of the Flies.
Let's give Trump any award we can think of. Like he wants a fucking Grammy. Let's make this guy an EGOT. And
EGOT means you've won an Emmy, a Grammy, a Tony, and an Oscar.
Give him the fucking Publishers Clearinghouse or whatever the fuck it's called. Like,
dig up the corpse of Ed McMahon to send over to his house.
All I'm saying is like feed this guy's ego, okay?
He win this year's Cy Young Award. Come on, that'd be great. Yeah.
I'm the best palm baller in the world because I have huge hands.
What's the worst that can happen? I mean, it's not going to make him a worse president. It could make him
Doc Ellis's palm ball has nothing on me. He has very small hands.
There's nothing to be lost from Trump feeling confident.
Did you know Doc Ellis threw a palm ball before MLB 18?
Fuck no. I admit that shit. Come on, dude. I get all my knowledge from TV, movies, and video games.
Hey, I feel like did we kind of skim over the intellectual dark web thing? Do we have more to talk about there?
I was going to come back to it later on. It's cool. Well,
let's
wanted to
do
get
that.
into,
Let's come back to it.
Well, the one thing I wanted to get into was the Stormy Daniels Apollonia stuff we were talking about in the chat today. I think that's something
Clifford.
we all forgot about that. I think in the pre-show.
Apollonia. What's Purple Rain got to do with Stormy Daniels?
I don't know. That's what I call her lawyer. I can't remember his name.
What's his name? Antelope? Cantaloupe? Pamplemousse?
What
say
was
it again?
It's
Appian
Avenatti.
Way? No, Appian Way is a road in Rome. It's huge. It's like
Say
the
his
main
name again.
north-south road.
Michael
Thanos.
Avenatti.
Yeah, Avenatti.
Avenatti, yes, thank you.
Dick, you made me learn. I wanted to call him Apollonia for like 6 weeks. You're a dick. You ruined my dream. Anyway.
Okay, so I have to admit, I completely missed the fucking back. I took a nap. I woke up. There was 43 unseen messages in unregimented, and I didn't read any of them. So,
Well, do you know the story that we're talking about though? Like, Stormy Daniels' lawyer somehow came in possession of documents that showed that Michael Cohen received all this money through his shell corporation, his consulting firm. That he was paid millions of dollars, a lot of it coming from this, I forget his name, but some rich Russian oligarch who has ties directly to Putin. AT&T, but there was was it a pharmaceutical company?
Yeah.
That,
I forget the name, but yeah.
all these random companies that were paying him millions of dollars, and then to all these, everyone except for the Russian oligarch had to come out with some sort of statement as to why they were paying Michael Cohen all this money.
oh, because he was an unofficial lobbyist, right?
Well, I mean, what it looks like to me,
Yeah,
and
it
to a lot
didn't
of people,
confirm anything. Because remember, the language in it said it appears to.
yeah,
You know, it didn't
looks
confirm.
like
They've admitted-
it
no,
looks
they've
like
admitted
he's okay.
They have admitted it. AT&T and the pharmaceutical company admitted that they paid.
No, I was talking about the Russian oligarch.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I didn't see that. But yeah, the companies though, they were basically paying him for access. He was access peddling.
Yeah, he's selling influence to the president.
Yeah,
Okay,
that was
I
it.
got you.
Influence and insight into how he operates. AT&T
Right,
got
that's
caught
how
up.
they phrased it. Yeah, they wanted insight
it's-
into how the new administration operates.
It's like a roadie in the 70s head for backstage pass.
AT&T pretty much screwed themselves when with the assumption that Hillary was going to win the election. So they had all sorts of people like in place to sort of massage her properly before the election. They didn't do any of that with Trump.
Ew.
Well, it was Novartis. That was the the other company that had paid Michael Cohen through this consulting firm, and I think they had 4 different statements at the end.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
it started out with like, that wasn't us, that was somebody else that hired him, and then it went to, well, we did hire him, but not for the reasons you think.
Right.
Okay, maybe it is the reasons you think.
Right. Yeah, it's exactly what we think. So, yeah, I mean, it's as far as all that goes. The big question I had that we didn't get to in the exchange this afternoon is, why is this motherfucker involved in this? He's supposed to be suing Donald Trump for the breach of contract or something down that line, or I don't even know exactly what
Yeah.
the terminology of the lawsuit is, but it's about him paying her hush money. Why is he involved in AT&T's dealings with Michael Cohen? Why is he prosecuting Michael Cohen?
He's making a name for himself. That's
No.
my
I
opinion.
want to know
Yes,
why.
but-
This is way far and beyond the scope of Stormy Daniels at this point. And why is he the one coming up with the information?
Well, there's a theory that he was given the information by Mueller's team, because it appears that Mueller already knew about this even before they did the no-knock search of Michael Cohen's place.
Let me ask, because I speculated that this afternoon. Have you heard that somewhere else? Because I just pulled that.
No, yes. Have I seen indicate? I've heard people say that state that as a theory, but you know, this comes up with the problem of, like, we don't really know what Mueller and his team have. But I guess there was evidence that I think it was in the New York Times article that there was evidence that that Mueller's team did know about this already, and and people are just drawing the line between that and Stormy Daniels' lawyer ending up with this information. He refuses to reveal his source on the information, and there's no reason for him to. What's
the point here? I mean, there's two angles to this. What's the point of the Mueller investigation? One, is it it's supposedly to investigate Russia's influence on the election, campaign fraud, stuff like that, correct? Well, told. Yeah, so what's the point of that investigation? What's the ultimate outcome of that investigation? Is it impeachment? Is that kind of where they're trying to find out they have to go? And if that's the case, this isn't something that's going to be tried in court. You're not going to have a jury. You're going to have to deal with Congress. So why is he sending all of this information to Avenatti to get it in the media? It's not going to matter if it's in the media or not. It's got to be the trial's going to take place in Congress. I don't understand why he's leaking all this. And if that's not the case, if it's not just a simple leak, where the fuck is he getting it from and why? Why is he even in this ballpark?
Well, there is an advantage. I mean, to say that it's in the hands of Congress doesn't mean that it's out of the hands of the people. And,
okay.
Well, I mean, I guess the way I see it is that
all right,
Mueller's investigation has an advantage to leak information and a disadvantage to leak information, right? First of all, if they leak information, then they're just corrupt, right? You can write them off as part of the deep state. Whereas if they leak information through a third party to try and keep their hands clean, then they can get the information out there that will maybe try and sway public opinion on Trump, knowing that let me finish. Knowing that the only way that Trump is going to get out of office is if he is there's enough people willing to vote for impeachment, and that's only going to happen with public support of people voting in elected officials that will take that stance.
Okay, well, there's two problems with that. Yes. that I think I should probably address. I'm trying to think of which one first. There's a Republican majority in Congress, and I think it's 2/3 or 3/4 needed to impeach.
Yes.
Right? We won't have too many problems with the Democrats. The Republicans are terrified of their base. If you remember we were talking about, I think it was last week, we were talking about how the Republican Party is basically Trump's now. That the people, the voters who voted for Trump, Republicans, conservatives, however you want to look at it, there's a very large segment of them who are more loyal to Donald Trump than they are to the Republican Party.
Absolutely.
Okay? So they have got to be terrified. There's so many layers to this. I mean, God, I don't even know how to begin this. But
I mean, just as an example, we saw the governor's primary race just recently in Michigan, and there's 3 candidates that were just elbowing each other out of the way, trying to suck Trump's dick. They were running on "I support Trump."
It's nationwide,
and that's what people are looking to vote on. I want to vote for somebody who's going to support our president.
Right, it's exactly right, and it's nationwide. The primaries around the country, I think most of the Republican primaries went to Trump people. So, why? If that's the case, Republicans in Congress, if it comes to impeachment, even if, say, the Mueller investigation, they find everything they're looking for, and they have this treasure trove of information leading to impeachment or articles of impeachment, it has to be voted on, okay? In fact, I think even the articles of impeachment to open the proceedings, I think that has to be voted on. Right. At some point. Republicans hold a majority in Congress. They are never, I don't care what happens, short of Donald Trump sitting naked, masturbating in front of a picture of Rosie O'Donnell with Vladimir Putin peeing on his nose. Anything short of that, there's nothing that's going to convince Trump supporters that this investigation is on the level. Nothing. Republicans know that.
Well, even that. I mean, that video is produced by George Soros. He hired out ILM to digitally create this situation.
Fair enough.
And then remember, too, impeachment, it doesn't necessarily mean he won't be president. See Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton was impeached.
Right.
He finished his term.
Beyond, I mean, there's we can take that all the way down this road if you want to. My point is, what is the point then of leaking the information? You're not going to convince anyone of anything at this point. He has to know that. He's got to know that. If anything, if he's leaking this information to Avenatti, he's making the situation worse because everybody else on that side who voted for Trump and supports Trump is digging their heels in ever deeper to the chance of fake news, deep state.
Okay. Well, I'll argue to your point then. Maybe it's just some red meat for the base because maybe there's the feeling that
whose base?
People are getting worn out on this Trump thing, right? That they're just acquiescing. Oh, well, let's just like all this.
Whose base?
Who can follow to the liberal base of people who want to see Trump out of office?
If Robert Mueller, if Robert Mueller
giving some information out there like, hey, we're doing that. Hey, don't worry. I know we can't reveal all of this stuff just yet, but there are things going on here. And here's a little leak to prove that we're making progress.
If that's the case, if you're saying that Robert Mueller is fellatiating the liberal base, then you've just basically acknowledged everything the right's been saying about this investigation.
Yeah.
So help me out here. So what is the advantage then?
Well, I'd like to believe
I don't
have another option.
Yeah, I'd like to believe that the man isn't just basically on a political witch hunt. I want to believe that. I don't have a choice to believe that. We have to have some faith in the institutions, or we may as well go gun buying this weekend together, kids.
Right.
So I have to give him the benefit of the doubt. I don't see any benefit for his credibility moving forward. This is where the credibility thing you were chatting about earlier, Chris, this is where it matters. It doesn't matter in court. It matters with the people. There has got to be credibility because the people who are voting on this man, if it does come to impeachment, have to worry about their base. They have to worry about their constituents getting reelected. So beyond that, let's take the Mueller thing out of it. Let's just pretend that we have faith in our institutions for just a minute, and he's not leaking this to sort of lather up the liberal base. What is Avenatti doing in this investigation?
That's a very good question.
How the fuck is he involved? How is he getting information? Why is he getting information? Who the fuck is this guy? Who the hell does he think he is?
Well, I mean, this case seems to be an end to the business dealings of Michael Cohen in general. I think, I don't know, nobody knows because he hasn't revealed, but nobody knows where he's getting this information on all these business dealings for Michael Cohen's company, but
what does that have to do with Stormy Daniels?
Because that's where the money came from that was paid to Stormy Daniels.
I thought, well, Trump already admitted to giving him a retainer, a hefty retainer that went to that. I mean, Trump basically admitted to paying it.
Right.
The man's permitted to do business beyond that.
This whole Giuliani fiasco over the last 2 weeks of everyone thinking that this guy is like off his rocker, and Trump having to come out and say, "Oh, Giuliani's just misinformed," when he's talking about who knew what about when the money was paid, how it was paid. But I kind of think it's genius now what they did, because the fear here was that Michael Cohen would be hit with a campaign finance violation by paying this money in order to influence the election,
right?
And that would then possibly cause him to flip on some of the shadier business dealings that he's done for Trump.
Right.
And so Giuliani comes out there and he's like, look, this is probably not even the only person that Michael Cohen has paid off for Trump. So he's basically saying this is just one in a number of, for whatever reason, whether they were trying to extort Trump or he's just trying to keep something secret that he actually did. This is just normal. This is just a day in the life of being a millionaire.
Let me ask
you, right?
Let me ask you this. I mean, maybe your constitutional understanding is a little bit better than mine, but if Trump had shady business dealings before he was president, is that impeachable?
No, because he wasn't president.
Well,
impeachment has to be something that happened while you were president to be impeached.
I don't know if that's necessarily true. I don't think because the only way that we have a hard definitions on what's impeachable is by trying it, right? That's the only way we test the limits of the laws in this country.
I think there are guidelines. I think there has to be some sort of guidelines for impeachment. I don't know this for sure. I'm asking.
Well, I mean, I mean, impeachment is based on whether you're fit for office or not, right?
I'm pretty sure
it's based on it's the statute that I know
concept.
Of. It's high crimes and misdemeanors, and I think while you're in office,
I'm pretty sure they can impeach you for things done on the campaign trail. Can't
right?
They?
I don't know
because that's considered. Because I remember when the very first. Well, okay, I remember. The morning after the election, the impeachment talk started, and the first thing everyone said is everyone who was wanting him impeached, has a fucking tip drip with a rock hard dick wanting him impeached, was like, the fix had to be in. Something had to happen. There's no way we were this wrong in all our polling, all our exit polling, and all this. He had to collude with Russia somehow. And if we can nail him on that, we can get him impeached. And these were people who were high up in politics who I would assume know what they're talking about. So there has to be some sort of precedent where maybe it's the collusion with another country is what would do it. I don't know. But I just remember hearing over and over and over again that was the first rumblings of impeachment, and that's what they were going to get him on.
I'm reading this thing that Chris just sent about legal standard and procedure. This is long. I'm not going to get through this before the end of the show. Did you read it, Chris? Did you scroll through it at all?
I am currently skimming.
Skim through and see if you see anything in there that addresses the election process, the campaign, the run-up to the election, or anything that happened prior. Because Nixon was impeached for the Watergate break-in during his term. It was the run-up to his re-election, I think, if I remember right. And Clinton obviously was in office. And he was impeached for the crime of perjury.
Yeah.
Right? He wasn't impeached for a blowjob. He was impeached because he lied about it under oath. Now, whether you like it or not, whether it's worthwhile or not, that's what the charge was.
Well, and it's just an interesting note. I wish we could all be around in 100 years, because I'm pretty sure in 100 years the story's going to go, he was impeached because he got a blowjob. Because if you ask people, I guarantee you they would go, oh, because he fucked that intern in the Oval Office? Isn't that why he was impeached? They would have no idea that it was about perjury.
Right. I don't know. This is something that I think that we're so blinded by the day-to-day drama of all this that I don't know how many people have actually thought this through. How are you going, let alone the after effects of an impeachment, which we've already talked about on several shows, but if you're dealing with his pre-election business dealings, why wasn't he prosecuted then? Why wasn't he investigated then? Where was the grand jury? You know?
My only guess, and it's wild and reckless speculation on my part, is that they didn't think he was going to win.
No, I mean, even before this. I'm talking, even he's been in business in New York City and all over the country and the world for decades.
Oh, well, I mean, how does any businessman avoid saying that?
It's a rhetorical question. I'm something stinks.
You know, I don't know. I'm going to say this,
but his dealings with Russia go back before he ever started running for president, and that's been known. It's just been. They haven't been able to prove anything. That
they did try. They could have proven it. I mean, if they can prove it now, they could have proven it then. And if it was known that he was having these dealings in Russia and they were so nefarious, why weren't they investigated then? And I'll up that one more. If these business dealings in Russia, which are huge and were known, why weren't they investigated before the election? Why weren't they properly vetted before? Why now? And I understand that nobody expected him to win. I understand that aspect of it, but it seems like a colossal failure on somebody's part. If these business dealings were so illegal, there's a colossal institutional failure that's been going on for decades then.
Yes. When you
it's hard to argue with that.
Yeah. I mean, I can't. Yeah, you just said it exactly right, Todd. And that's a major problem we have in this country.
Right, but
I think when it.
But I'm not disagreeing, but I come to a different conclusion because I understand that even a successful prosecution of the president doesn't mean he's going to be removed from office. I still want to see this happen.
I've said this once before, and I can't remember if I said it during a pre-show or if I said it on the show. I understand the desire to get this man out of office. I really do. But I think at this point, you're wishing upon a fucking star.
I have a desire for truth. Really.
Yes.
Truth ain't the truth ain't coming out anytime soon. You just have to to deal with that.
The process has to be done right. It has to be done pristinely.
And
it has to be done
almost. Time.
It almost has to be perfect. And I'm with you there, Aaron. I want to see I want to see this investigated. I want to see it come out. I want to know the truth, right or wrong, but whether he deserves to be impeached or not. I want to know what happened. But it needs the process needs to be almost saintly.
Right, and I see where you're coming now from the aspect of these documents ending up in Michael Avenatti's hands.
Yeah,
like this is working against the cause of having a chance of removing this man from office.
Yeah, and it's also throwing kerosene on that fire that we talked about. That even if you impeach him, and it doesnn't succeed, the division again, the isolation, the cavern, the chasm between the two sides of this country is going to grow exponentially worse.
Right, the success is not measured in just impeaching him, but impeaching him impeachably,
impeccably impeaching him,
to do it and not make him a martyr.
Right.
That would be the ultimate goal.
Or not make yourself.
I have an answer for you guys.
Or not make yourself more of an enemy.
Yeah.
Is it a
Chris?
The answer I have for you may not be satisfying.
Of course.
But from anything I've read that looks like it's worth a shit, Reddit not included, there is no definitive answer on whether a president can be impeached on stuff that he did before he was in office. But there is a second part to the impeachment process where they have to convict him. And while 2 presidents have been impeached, none have ever been convicted.
Nixon
and
resigned.
Yeah. And it says even if Democrats retake the House, they still need to come up with a case strong enough to convince 2/3 of the Senate to actually convict him.
Now,
it's never been tested if you could actually send policemen, FBI into the office and put cuffs on the president and drag him out.
You're not going to do that. That's a criminal proceeding, for one thing. That has nothing to do with impeachment. Impeachment doesn't mean you go to jail. Impeachment is removing you from office. So nobody's going to come into the White House and arrest him. He's just going to be, you're done, get out. And then the legal proceedings, if there are any, will like a grand jury and a prosecutor and all that will have to take place after he's removed. This isn't putting the man in jail. It's removing him from the Oval Office.
No, I understand, but I mean, it's never been tested. What if the president just says, no, you can't impeach me? You do not have that power.
I'll be watching him.
At some point, it's a test of power
or something.
And if a president was stubborn enough, and Trump just might be, then it might come down to somebody has to go in there and cuff the man and remove him from the Oval Office.
Yeah,
I mean, ultimately, this is all just thought experiment.
Yeah.
Well, hold on for a second. Let me just do one follow-up real quick. I don't want to take away from what you were going to say there, but if you could do me a favor, Chris, if you're at the computer, check out the House of Representatives and check out what the balance is right now between Republican and Democrat. You need 2/3 of that, right?
Yes.
See what the difference is see what you need for 2/3 and see what you have for Republicans and see what the difference that you would have to do to get from where the Democrats are right now to getting 2/3. How many Republicans do you have to swing to actually get to 2/3 in the House of Representatives? I'd love to see that number because the House is heavily Republican. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. And they're going to need more than a 3% gain to accomplish that.
Yeah,
exactly.
A lot more. Sorry,
That's why I say ultimately, I'm with you guys. I want the truth. I want it to come out. But if you vote them out in 2020, I'm going to rest a lot easier while they're looking for the fucking truth. And this is what I'm worried about. Impeachment gets people excited. There's whether or not he goes to jail or not does not matter in the minds of the average person who hates him.
They want to see him voted off the show. You want to see him voted off the show.
Exactly. And if you put all your eggs in that basket and you spend all your time fucking harping on that instead of, I don't know, actually going out and winning votes, getting this massive base of young people who run the world because they're the most internet savvy people. you get the David Hogg bunch to fucking vote for a change, that'll do something more than sitting around all this hand wringing and playing fucking what if with impeachment. Mm-hmm. But it's not as sexy.
No.
It goes back to...
Hey, Todd, to answer your question, you have to flip 90 Republicans.
90 to get to 2/3.
Yes.
Good luck.
Like I said, ultimately, it's just...
That's what, like 15%?
It's too much work.
How many representatives are there again?
It's
435. Well, technically, right now, there's 429 and 6 vacancies.
It's easier to sit and wish upon a star that he's going to get impeached than it is to go out and actually fucking put the work in.
Yeah, hold that thought for a second.
To get him out of office.
Bring us back there if I forget. So there's 435 in the House of Representatives. I have mine.
By the way, Aaron, that's 21%.
Oh, it's 21%. Okay. Wasn't that far.
What is? 21% is what?
The 90 is 21% of 435.
And what, they were only polling at 15% up at the highest, I think, and now down to 3%. So, yeah.
Yeah, so you need 287. If there's 435 and you need 2/3, you need 287 yes votes for impeachment in the House of Representatives, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
You know,
And
I guess
there are how many Democrats right now?
193.
Every time we talk about Trump and Russia and all this stuff, it comes down to what matters. Does this matter? Does that matter? Is this going to make a difference? And I guess maybe it depends on what definition you want to go with for what matters. Like, if your definition is it matters because it's going to help remove Trump from office, well, then, no, probably most of the stuff that we are hearing about doesn't matter. If it matters just because the truth always matters, then yeah, it all matters. It's all a part of the bigger puzzle. You know, what are these documents about transactions that Michael Cohen had ultimately tell us? Nothing on their own, but you know, that's the one corner piece that you were looking for forever that maybe helps you put together the bigger picture. So it all matters, but there's a bigger definition. Like, I was thinking about this earlier watching a stupid commercial for a Windows tablet, and this girl's like telling about she's going to school to be a doctor and all that stuff, and she wants to create these presentations because she wants to convince people that what she's doing matters. And my response to that was like, well, if it mattered, you wouldn't have to convince anyone, right? They would just see it. If it mattered enough that you were curing diseases or helping people or just saving individuals, that's evident in its own. You don't have to convince people that something matters.
So then I don't know. You should have the qualifier of "to me." It matters to me.
Well, if you were to let's put it this way: if you were to say the soliloquy that you just gave us a moment ago about truth, if you were to take that over and give that to a hardcore Trump supporter in that context, you would have to convince him that it mattered. You see, we've gotten to that point.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up the fact that you brought up the truth matters, and we've clearly made a decision as a group that facts and truth do not matter anymore.
Yeah, that decision as a group is that's a bunch of horseshit. I mean, in any rational conversation and discussion, the truth matters. Now, we may not be having that rational conversation and discussion. That much is true, and I think we'd all agree on that. But it does still matter. Moving forward, if you want any sort of a future, I mean, Donald Trump is going to be a historical footnote at some point. The damage being done today, right now, is not going to be a historical footnote moving forward. And that's why the truth matters.
So, there's also the possibility of a Trump presidency making our democracy stronger.
Well, we also have, the truth does matter, but the problem is on the far end of political spectrum, we have two.
Welcome to the dark web conversation. Thank you very much.
We have two groups who have thrown up walls to block truth. And on the right, it's fake news, and on the left, it still is. It's shifting. I've noticed this in like the last couple of weeks listening to people talk about things. It's went from my truth. I think they got such a blowback from the whole to tell your truth. I want you to tell your truth that they're slowly starting to change to I'm going to tell this truth. There's more than one.
It's alternate facts. Alternate facts.
You articulated what I failed to, Rich. Thank you.
Me running. Jesus Christ. They're co-opting. What the fuck's her name? fucking press secretary, the batshit one.
Kathy?
No.
Huckabee Sanders?
Huckabee Sanders?
No, not the alternate truth bitch.
Oh, Kelly Conway.
This truth is a direct synonym for alternate
My
facts.
truth. Yes, exactly.
It's the same thing.
That's the new way of putting that on the left. None of this is new. There's nothing new under the sun.
A fucking puppy right now. A cute puppy. Put it in front of me so I can just grab it by the neck. Oh wait, I have this little thing. I have this little doll that I got, a Zapatista doll that I got down in Mexico. I'm going to strangle it here. So if you hear a pop, it's just its little neck. How the fuck can you do this to yourself? How can you sit there and come up with direct parallels to lines that you were condemning a year ago? How can you intellectually have that much lack of dignity?
Because we go through it every week. It's not about right. It's not about wrong. It's not about honor. It's not about being rational or logical. It's about winning at all costs. And when that is put above everything else, then all the gamesmanship is on the table. And any type of fucking reality, any type of nuance, pick whatever word you want, go out the window, because that's just in the way of me winning. And I have to win at all costs because that's the game. It's a zero, but here's the thing. It's a zero-sum game. And that's what I'm tired of fucking this country playing. They think that for them to win, someone else has to lose something. So the only way I win is if I take something from you. Play a non-zero-sum game where you both win. We create something instead of moving around fucking pieces, but never adding to the situation. Yeah. Or worse yet, destroying pieces out of pure pettiness. Like think of the movie The Usual Suspects, the story of Kaiser Soze. What did he do when they walked in and threatened his family? He walked in, they had him at gunpoint, had his wife and kids at gunpoint, said, "We're going to kill him if you don't do what we say." And he took his gun out and he looked at his kids and his wife said, "I love you all," and he blew their brains out and said, "Now what?" That's what they rather do than lose. And they have the will to do it. Both sides, they've proven it time and time again. They'll slaughter everybody just to not, so you won't win. If they see that they can't win, they'll drag everyone down with them. And that mentality gets us nowhere.
Oh, it gets us somewhere. It gets us somewhere. Nowhere good.
Nowhere that we truthfully want to go. You know, it's like these people who are really pushing, you know, the division of the races, you know, people of color on one side, all white people on the other. You people don't realize what you're asking for. You are stoking the fires of a race war that ain't going to turn out the way you think it is.
What is the demographic breakdown of white men in this country?
Well, white people in this country, last time I looked, were 64%. You split that up, so that's about 32%. Because it's about, 31%. It's 51% women in this country, 49% men. So if you split 64% up along those demographics, you get 31% of this country are white men.
What demographic? What is there a larger demographic than that?
No.
Anyway,
white women by your numbers. Only by a percentage.
I'm just playing the let's divide everybody up into little camps game and trying to figure out how you think that is a tactically wise move in warfare to alienate and make enemies of the largest group in the country you're fighting.
Right.
Well, Todd, I got even better news for you. The given that white women are going to jump on the side.
That's exactly where I was just going to go. That's exactly where I was going to go.
Opposite of white men isn't as much of a given anymore. The left is now pushing, the far left is now, the SJW bunch is now pushing this thing called white feminism.
Yep.
And you're bad for it. White feminism is you only care about women issues that affect you as a white woman. It's not intersectional feminism. It's not connected to everything else.
Yeah.
So you need to shut up and let people of color talk over you.
These are the TERFs? Mm-hmm. Is that what they call them?
I don't fucking know. There's
I saw that term for the first time today. I saw people writing and bitching about white women crying as an act of aggression.
Yes. TERFs are trans exclusionary radical feminist.
Right.
This is not what we're talking. We're talking about black feminists,
okay,
Hispanic, Latina feminists, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, this is the left eating itself and slowly creating enemies out of allies.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. The right is just laying back in the buckwheat.
That's all they have to do.
This is what the right used to do. The right used to divide up Catholic, Protestant, Baptist, are you Southern or First? Because it all matters.
Yeah.
You don't worship my God the way I worship my God, so you're wrong. Now the left is doing this with this identity politics bullshit as their Jesus. And they've split up into all these different groups. And what they don't realize is that you're going to fuck yourself in the end.
Divide and conquer. I told a guy, this dude that I used to have these knockdown, drag-out, circular gun control conversations when I was really anti-gun a few years ago, that all he has to do, now he's not, I wouldn't consider him a dogmatic Republican. He has left-leaning beliefs on some issues. He would vote for a Democrat, a sensible one. He just can't find one. But I told him a few weeks ago, and I've told several people this, you may have seen it on my Facebook page, you just, all you have to do now, if you're a conservative, is just shut the fuck up and let the far extreme left do the ideological heavy lifting for you. Let them make assholes of themselves. You don't have to do it. The only responsibility you have, if you want to sort of move forward with conservative values, or however you want to look at it, win more power, I guess, for conservatives, is just not be an extremist batshit nut like these guys. That's all you have to do now. If you can even manage to sound sensible, not move, you don't have to come to the left. You just have to sound sensible.
Right.
And you're going to be...
You have to put on a suit and comb your hair.
It's it. And just shut the fuck up.
We are 30 years removed from the group that was seen, rightfully so, as wanting to stifle free speech as Christian conservatives. Now, if you ask anyone who isn't an ideological retard, what group poses the biggest threat to freedom of speech, it's the SJWs.
Oh, by far.
And I mean, like there's a group, I'm going to plug a group on Facebook. It's an interesting group. If you listen to this podcast, you'll probably be interested in this group. It's called Why Did You SJW That? And people post links from other sites and places on Facebook where people are up in arms, what they call left book, the SJW safe havens on Facebook. And one of the things that's been making the rounds is Bruno Mars culturally appropriating black music. And of all people, Sean King, Mr. Talcum X himself, comes out and fucking goes, what do you want? Okay, so what music is this man allowed to play? How many grunts is he allowed to put into a song? And is he allowed to put in a song until he's appropriating James Brown? If he plays guitar, is he appropriating Prince? I mean, and this is...
He's half black, so he can only be 50% funky.
Yeah. And it's like, these are the type of issues that this group they post it. Now there's of course infighting in the group because you do get people who come in to fucking start shit in a group like any place else. It's the internet. It's my first day, if you don't know that. But it's interesting because it's mostly you just watch people rip themselves apart who are on the same side ideologically. They just disagree about this one issue. And you can literally watch people and I hate to use this term, but it's so apt. It's been co-opted by a certain element on the right and it pisses me off. But you can actually, I don't mean it in the way that when they say red pilled, but you can actually watch people like come to realize, wait a minute, we're arguing and ripping ourselves apart over Bruno fucking Mars?
Right.
Are you fucking serious? And then those people get shunned because how dare you fucking say that? It all matters. It's the Anita Sarkeesian shit. The story that really made me dig into SJWs. The first time I ever heard that term was like the second episode I did with you guys, and you brought it up about Gamergate. And I went and started looking up Anita Sarkeesian. This bitch is nuts. She's up there at a Comic-Con panel talking about everything's racist, everything's sexist, everything's homophobic, everything's Islamophobic, and you have to call it out at all times. And it's just like, that's the attitude of these people.
Speaking of cultural appropriation, that Twitter was blowing up over the Met Gala. I don't even know what this event is. All I know is that like once a year I see a bunch of pictures of celebrities dressing up for some theme. I'm not even sure what they're doing at this place. But this year's theme was
sex slaves, children of sex slaves.
I started seeing all these pictures of celebrities dressed like the Pope.
Oh yeah.
And so I guess their theme was the Catholic Church or something like that. And there were people who, whether they were trolling or they were honestly believing this, were like, well, this is cultural appropriation. You're appropriating my Catholic culture.
But if we want to be consistent, it is. You couldn't do that with any other religion. You couldn't do that with Judaism.
If you want to be consistently retarded.
But let me tell you why it's not. Okay?
I'm just saying,
mansplain to
you
me,
can do it with any
white male.
Dude,
it's not cultural appropriation because
the
you
theme
can
of that Muslim.
Quit yelling.
You are so fucking
See how that goes.
Quit yelling. It's loud.
Here's why it's not, because you can only appropriate you can only negatively appropriate someone's culture if you are in some sort of position of power over them. And the Catholic Church is a very powerful organization, so they're fair game.
The old only white people can be racist because they have all the power. Black people can't because they have no power. That old fucking trope gets.
You can all be racist, just whether the racism matters or not. That's the problem.
I can't.
Yes, I did see
do
that.
it.
And I have a friend who's very, 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 very Catholic. And when he started throwing around, you're appropriating the Catholic culture, I said, you understand you're using the very language that you call people snowflake and cucks for using. But because it's about your team, because it's about the Yankees, and you hate you're gonna adapt what the Red Sox are doing.
I think
you hate them when they do it.
I think it's less about that they honestly believe that, and more about they feel this is a way to point out the left's hypocrisy.
I agree there are people that are like that. I don't agree that it's the most. I don't think that's the majority. Majority, I don't think that.
You think they're honestly offended?
They're offended. They're Twitter offended.
Right.
They're Twitter offended.
Right.
And
It doesn't affect their lives. It's first world bullshit.
Gets upset about a Halloween costume.
Exactly.
No, the thing with this is that I keep coming back to, and I can't do this cultural appropriation conversation. I just can't. It's one of the stupidest things I think I've ever heard. I've got a shawl out there that I bought down in Cuzco. This little hooded thing, it's like a big blanket with a hood in the top of it, and you wear it over the top of you. You probably all seen those, right? I bought one of those down there because I liked it. I wanted to give the woman money, and the motherfucker's warm. I wear it a lot. So apparently I'm culturally appropriating Peru as I walk around my basement trying to keep warm all day. Fuck these people.
Well, first of all,
and what's funny is 20 years ago you were celebrating diversity. Now you're culturally appropriating.
Yeah.
Ding, ding.
We're all culturally appropriating just by using English. And we live in Michigan, like everything's named after an Indian around here.
Right, or French.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, okay, look.
Hey, by the way,
we all. Oh,
real
sorry.
quick.
Go ahead, Chris.
Well, just Todd, to answer your question, about a little over a third of the U.S. population is white males, and about 70% of the U.S. population is white.
So 70%. Let me go back to that, because you nailed something right on the nail, or right on the head, Rich. About white. I was talking about the white men and wanting to alienate that group, right? White women didn't even win. Hillary didn't even win white women in the election. I think white women went to Trump, if I'm not mistaken. Correct me if I'm wrong.
They sure did.
I have that in my.
According to the Women's March signs I've seen, yes, they did.
They did. So how many of them are going to be in Mr. White Man camp here? A whole hell of a lot. And the further the left goes towards batshittery, the more are going to be joining in this little alienated group that you're demonizing. You're building an opposition army.
Well, that's why they have to continually come up with new. I want to call it like sub boogeymen. Like there's the ultimate boogeyman, the Nazi, the white nationalist, the alt right, and then there's like all these subgroups, and like okay, the attack from the incel, the involuntary celibate guy. Mm-hmm. That's that's the far left's new boogeyman. I've seen this lady tweeted out. What about all you tech companies that have a bunch of incels working for you who are just waiting to do what this man did? What are you going to do about it? And I'm like, shut the fuck up, cunt. How about that? How about you throw one of these guys a blowjob and make yourself useful for a change instead of fucking. First of all, this pisses me off because the term incel first started getting used, as far as I saw, around the time of the 40-Year-Old Virgin, the movie come out, and it was to describe men just like Stephen. What's his name? 40-Year-Old Virgin. Steve Carell. Steve Carell.
Dude, I never heard that shit till this year.
I didn't either last year.
Yeah.
It was an online thing. It was in a couple forums I was in, like.
It's a 4chan thing, right?
Yeah. They would throw it around like, you fucking incel can't get any pussy. We'll go play your fucking video games, you 50-year-old fuck, shit like that.
Yeah.
And then I guess, okay, guys, I dipped my toe into this pool and went looking, and we are talking maybe a few thousand hardcore, very angry people are like, we're taking that term back. It's like they're like Randall and Clerks 2. Poor Chunky, I'm taking it back.
That seem to honestly believe in sexual socialism.
Exactly. And and if these thousands of people, and I mean, you go to forums and you see the member count and it's 2,000. You go to another forum, it's a couple hundred. Some forums have a few dozen members. That's it. And they're just, all these bitches, they say they want a good man, but they always turn a good man down and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, okay, they're ranting and raving. If it wasn't that, they would find something else to rant and rave about. These are just sick, demented people. We have them in our society. It's the price we pay for civilization. And to sit there and act like they're this huge underground grassroots sub-movement that's coming up through the right wing that wants death to all women is absolute bullshit and is giving them way too much credit. And you know what you're doing? You're being the best recruiter for them you can be.
Because I heard that they were a product of your toxic masculinity. That you are responsible personally for allowing this behavior to happen.
Exactly.
You know what you said something really it made me laugh when you said it. It reminded me of a thought I had a few days ago when you said they're trying to socialize sexuality, right? Getting pussy? Trying to socialize it, right? What they're trying to do is exactly what the far left's trying to do with turning equality, equal opportunity into equality and outcome. They want to be able to get just as much pussy as anybody else, while half of the ideology of the far left is sort of socializing the outcomes in absolutely every aspect of life.
But
it's Todd, the same thing.
Something I have to say, and I guess, fuck it, I'm sticking up for him on this one tiny aspect, is a lot of, from what I read from this group of people, a lot of the backlash is because of the hardcore third wave feminist rhetoric that's been thrown in their face in the last 5-10 years. Shit like there's no such thing as the friend zone. It's just guys who think they're owed sex because they were nice to a woman. Okay, first of all, if a guy is just after sex, we have the amount of bullshit we'll put up with. And if you don't put out, there's far, far less high maintenance women to get pussy from. We will move on. Friend zone is simply unrequited love. One person's in love with another person that doesn't feel the same way. That person values the person who's in love with them's friendship, doesn't want to hurt their feelings, but it's never going to go anywhere. That's the friend zone. But somehow these really bitter, angry.
When it happens to a woman, it's a movie script. When it happens to a guy, it's creepy and on the news.
Exactly. And these guys bristled against that type of bullshit coming from these hardcore feminists. And these hardcore feminists, I really believe they don't want to win. They'll take their little victories in battles here and there, but they don't want to win the war because then they have no purpose in life.
Yeah, they're not a victim anymore.
Exactly. Their purpose in life is to constantly fucking be snarky cunts from the sideline. And if they can't do that and they don't have a stated enemy, they will create one from their own ranks. And that's what we're starting to see now, because you were exactly right, Todd. You got the people who get really pissed off and speak out against them and might get on a podcast and say it. And then you got a very large silent majority who just go, who gives a fuck what these nutty cunts think? Fuck them.
Not voting for them.
Exactly.
Yep.
Find a spin cycle and a pulsating shower head and get happy, bitch. I don't know what to tell you. Get some cats.
Yeah. This all, I was trying to take this back to the intellectual dark web stuff a few minutes ago, because I think this all ties into that. Because again, I'm going to reiterate: if you're if you're new and just joining the thousands upon thousands of unregimented listeners at ChristopherMedia.net, if you're brand new, the four of us are not politically aligned. It may sound like we are, but we're not. Aaron, you consider yourself, or did consider yourself, I don't know where you're at now, you consider yourself pretty liberal. You were a lot more liberal than I was a few years ago. I was on the left end. Rich, I think you probably would consider yourself, with apologies, a libertarian. And Chris, you're a conservative, right?
I'd like to think I'm more in the middle. I'm the filthy centrist.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. But
No, I mean, maybe not right now. Let's talk
Leaning.
traditionally. Let's
Yeah.
talk. Let's talk traditionally where you.
No, I'll say I was brought up in a conservative household. I'll cop to that.
Yeah.
Todd, let me just for 1 sec say something.
Yeah,
It doesn't really matter where we're at on the political scale.
that's where I was
The
going.
point is that we're all sitting down talking to each other, having a discussion instead of
Right.
going, oh, you disagree with me on this, you're my enemy.
I mean, this whole intellectual dark web thing is it's evident right in the name. Like, why is this the dark web? Why are they?
Well, somebody-
what makes these people the dark? Like, you shouldn't go there.
No, you know why? It's because these are people, these are heretics. These are ideological heretics that have been purged from the institutions, purged from mainstream media, so to speak.
Right.
People.
That's why it's dark web. It's sort of dark, dangerous, and mysterious. It's not the norm. It's not acceptable conversation.
Todd, I sent you an article I want to say it was near the end of April from bigthink.com that was about the quote unquote intellectual dark web. And if I remember, it's either that article or another article about it I looked up after reading that. Basically, it's a pejorative term to label people, and it
sounds like conspiracy theory.
It stemmed from or it started gaining a lot more traction after the Sam Harris, Ben Affleck, Bill Maher argument.
Right.
Because Sam Harris stayed calm, kept making his points, where Ben Affleck,
They were talking about Muslims.
went off the rails and was like, you're racist. And Sam Harris said something very calm and quietly that most people who watched that live and never went back and watched the clip again missed, which is he said, what are you talking about? Muslims aren't a race.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I think the people that heard Sam Harris say that went, ding, the light went on. And I think the people who were just like, wow, Ben Affleck's so passionate.
You're racist for thinking that everyone in the Middle East is Muslim.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I think it was a term that they said, well, if you're going to fucking label us that, it's better than alt-right. So let's get out ahead of this thing as much as we can and say, fine, yeah, we are the intellectual dark web. Why? Because we're not beholden to any ideology. We're open to all ideas. We're open to discussion, and we will discuss it in a very heated manner between ourselves. But at the end of the day, we all have respect for each other.
You're not going to call each other names. You're not going. It's about issues, and yeah, like you said, you can sit down and have a beer with them and talk about other things when you're done. You haven't judged the human being as a person based on a tiny, minuscule disagreement in philosophy. That I think is that's what I keep reading about from the people that have been sort of I don't know if encamped underneath that sort of umbrella label.
Yeah.
But that's the one thing that they keep saying is that, we can talk about that. We're not afraid to talk about taboo subjects. We're not afraid to talk about things that are maybe a lot of other people, especially if you're an ideologically faithful human being, would consider dangerous. This is the thing about Jordan Peterson. He's not a right-wing nut job. I've seen nothing from him that indicates he's anything near an alt-right guy. He's saying a lot of stuff that just makes a lot of fucking sense. And it's outside of the left-right dialectic. And I think that scares the living shit out of people, especially the far left. Because I think they're afraid that if people get exposed to him too much, they're going to sort of see the ridiculousness coming from that camp. I think he scares people to death. That's the only thing that I can think of.
Well, there's the interesting fact that he grew up in a very conservative Christian home in Canada.
Yeah.
And it's amazing that any article who is looking to passive aggressively slam him or outright slander him puts that in the first couple paragraphs. Any article that is either in support of him or takes a very non-committal view and just presents the who, what, where, when, why, and how about him.
Yeah.
It's either buried in the article or it's not mentioned at all because he doesn't adhere to those beliefs anymore. It doesn't matter. I was raised Southern Baptist. Would you call me a fucking flag bearer for the Southern Baptist religion?
Only behind your back.
I'm sorry, what?
Only behind your back. I have a couple of times.
I mean, it doesn't matter what fairy tales your parents told you when you were growing up. If you grow up and reject them, it doesn't matter. And right. This is why it irritates me, because if I say that in the beginning of an article and I know I'm playing to a certain crowd, that's going to paint him in a light that's just intellectually dishonest.
The thing is, he hasn't rejected them. He's actually taking them for what they are, mythology. He's taken, a lot of his stuff. I haven't watched all of his videos on his YouTube channel as of yet. I haven't watched any of them, actually. But he has a lot of the stuff in the 12 Rules for Life or whatever it's called. There's a lot of Bible verses and talk about the Bible in there. But it's not Sky Daddy's up there watching you jerk off every day. It's taking it for what it is. It's almost like dissecting some other myth. I can't think of one right off the top of my head. I can't believe I can't think of a myth. But it's taken the wisdom. It's taken collected human wisdom that's been put in story form and bringing it into contemporary times and applying it where it needs to be applied. That is the proper use of religion. He's doing it.
Well, here's my issue with the people fucking with him. He also does that with Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But no one says, oh, he believes in Zeus. He's a Zeusian.
Exactly.
I mean, isn't it all a collection of stories? I mean, don't be a shithead. Whether it's religion or mythology.
It's one of the fundamental principles in that book, and I've only read the first chunk of it, but one of the fundamental principles that I've seen in that book is that people cannot live without structure. People can't live without rules. And I can attest to that in my own life. We can get into that at some point if you want to, but individuals and a society cannot live without structure, and they cannot live without a belief system. They can't live without something to keep their eyes on, to keep them from just going off the rails and driving into the ditch. I thoroughly believe that. I totally agree with that. And Chris, to answer your question, that's what the Bible is. It's put into story form to give you a sense of morality, give you a sense of right and wrong. It's not God. It's not Moses. It's not the Ten Commandments. It's not a threat of hell. It's just a basic idea. This is what we've all agreed upon as a society that makes us a good person. This is how we've agreed to behave. This is how society's going to stick together and stay together. That's what religion is. It's all it is. And people want to take it literally because they need to get the get out of death free card. They want to believe it literally afterwards. Fine, whatever. Mortality anxiety is a real thing. I get that. Some people need that. It's fine. But that's all it is. That's all it's ever been.
Yeah, it's a self-policing system. Really, it's to get us to behave.
Yeah, and we need it. We honestly need it. If you don't think so, I invite you. I'll buy the tickets, motherfuckers. If you guys want to go to Afghanistan and go check out the warlords who are living in anarchy, fine. Let's go compare. People need rules. They need them. And if you don't have that structure in your life and you don't have any kind of thing to keep you between the guardrails on life's little highway, you will drive into the ditch and hit a tree.
This is why I've said for a long time, I feel that religion had a place at the forefront of society, and it served a very large and needed purpose at one point. But we are far removed from when it thunders, we think God's angry with us. I would hope we are far removed from the eclipse is coming, so we have to fucking, disembowel people at the top of our temple to please our gods.
No, not at its core, because all those, that's religion used to calm our fears, right? And we're not afraid of the thunder anymore in that respect because we can at least explain it now. But that doesn't mean we're any less fearful. We've just changed what we're afraid of.
Slept in a bivvy sack out in the middle of like Colorado in a thunderstorm. I'm scared to death of thunder. I don't want to get struck by. But no, I'm trying to be funny.
We're less fearful because at least we know that it's right. Something that can be explained.
Yeah, I used to make the comparison. I make this periodically when we need a little humility as a species to remember that we're essentially, in comparison to 500 years from now, we're still cavemen sitting in a cave thinking that the gods are angry and throwing lightning bolts at us. In a lot of ways, we're still there.
Well, I think, I definitely see your point. And I agree that religion has served a very important purpose in our history. I feel like it's something that we're collectively evolving beyond.
slowly.
But there has to be something to supplant that, because
that's exactly right.
What religion is a way for us to communicate. We're not born good and with morals, right? We only learn that behavior through communication. We only learn that through examples of what is good and moral behavior, what is expected from society. And religion was a way to communicate those ideas in a way where, communication wasn't quite so easy.
And here's the thing.
And so if everyone's reading from the same book, we're all getting the same ideas.
This should terrify you. You're right. There has to be something to supplant it, right? And in the old Soviet Union, what was the first thing they got rid of? Religion.
Right. Well, the government.
What did they replace it with?
The state.
Ideology. That's what's happening.
That sounds real fucking familiar.
That's exactly what's happening on the far left. They're secular. Nobody on the far left, very few on the far left are religious, but they have a religion. They have the blasphemy. They have it all, man. They'd cut your tongue out if it was legal. I've made that analogy before. So, Rich, I'm not challenging you. I understand. You and I are on the same page on a lot of this stuff. But if you want to get rid of religion, and I know on some level you do, and I think you want to believe that we've evolved past it, you have to take that into account. There has to be something there to replace it. And if you yank that tumor out right now, ideology is going to fill that hole.
I absolutely agree with that. And that's why I see this is the problem. It's the same way when I talk about other subjects that people hold close to their heart or whatever, and they go, "Oh, you hate," just for an example to throw out there, I don't care what hormones and treatment and transitions you go through, you're still biologically the sex you were born as. Period. End of story. Until we can change strands of DNA through CRISPR or whatever other fucking inventions that we come up with, you're still biologically the sex you were born as. And people go, "Oh, you hate transsexuals." No, I don't. I never said anyone's rights should be taken away. I don't want religion banned, but I don't want religion, whether it be Islam, Christianity, Judaism, to be the bar setter for the standards that I'm supposed to live by. You want to worship that shit in your house? That's fine. Hey, you know what I like doing? I like coming on women's faces. But I'm not going to let that dictate the laws and how I'm going to vote. Keep it to your fucking self. One of the best things I ever heard was religion's like your dick.
Yeah.
It's nice that you have one. Don't wave it in my face and keep it to yourself until last.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's all I'm asking.
I completely agree with that. Absolutely agree with that. I'd like to know the Bible verse, though, that tells you not to come on women's faces. Seriously, I want to read that.
A man who spills his seed. Your seed. Yeah.
the donkey emissions.
Which is funny because that's what I'm telling her I'm doing as I'm doing it. Like, I'm going to spill this seed all over you. Let's put in The Exorcist and fuck.
Right. I mean, the left has its own code that it applies and ostracizes those that don't fit it. And it was evident even in ridiculous things like the reaction to the DJ Khaled interview, where he's talking about he doesn't eat his wife's pussy, right? And from the group of people who are normally all about whatever you're sexually attracted to, whatever you do in the privacy of your own home, that's your business, to this is toxic masculinity. This is, this guy's an asshole. He should be the measure of a good lover is somebody who knows the pleasures of giving oral sex, and making all these judgments on this guy's sex life.
Right.
With his wife.
Yeah, I mean, I know you wanted to talk about that a little bit. I don't want to quite come off of this just yet, though, because there are a lot of other examples that you could use where, particularly on the left has become, I may have said this last week, I may have said it on this show, but I definitely said it to someone else, that the left is becoming Castro to Trump's Batista. And there are so many examples of punishment for blasphemy, ideological, doctrinal, scriptural blasphemy coming from the left now. It is becoming a religion. And I really want to caution people when they condemn religion. I have done this, man. I came from this camp. I don't believe in God and Sky Daddy and all that other stuff. And I railed against it, thinking it's stupid and thinking that people are evolved past it and all this other stuff. I was wrong. It's not something that I want thrown in my face. I still don't believe it. My girlfriend's parents are fundamentalist Christians. We don't talk religion. We've gotten to the point where they understand that. But I don't want to take that away from them. Because even if I could, I don't want that hole there to be filled by something far worse. And ideological religion replacing traditional religion is much worse. We've seen it in the Soviet Union. We've seen it in Germany. We've seen it God knows where else. And once you have that, then you're starting to talk about hell on earth, where 60 million people die. That's the problem. Let them have it. As long as they're not waving it in your face, let them have it, because something worse is out there waiting to fill it.
Yeah, and we've also, in the process of replacing religion with ideology, we've kind of, I know it's human nature to root for the underdog, but we've kind of turned a blind eye to the horrors that religions, besides Christianity, commit, because, well, they're the underdog.
Yeah.
I mean, I asked a friend she hates Christianity with a passion. And I'm like, do you believe in any of it? No. So why do you hate it so much? It's like hating Santa Claus. Yeah. I mean, and she's like, because it oppresses people and oppresses gay people and it takes people's rights away. And I said,
so is Islam.
Why don't you hate Islam as much as Christianity? Mm-hmm. Well, Islam's not the main religion. That's not a reason to decide who to root for.
There's more Muslims in the world by far than Christians.
Not in her neighborhood. Not in her neighborhood.
Go have a vagina in a Muslim country. Let me know how that works out for you.
Yeah, try to take that burqa off.
Well, the thing with me and Jordan Peterson's use of Bible verse, it's not that, I understand that he's coming at this more from a secular viewpoint and just going, look, this is just, there's truth in here, right? But and I'm not saying that this is how it affects me, but I wonder how effective his message is when wrapped in Bible verse, because there's so much baggage that goes along with it. It's like trying to say that, hey, there's some good points in Mein Kampf.
Yeah, he's pretty good. Now, he's pretty good about, I think, expressing that, at least from where I've read it. I mean, I have a background reading Joseph Campbell. I really get a kick out of mythology. And I think that most people who are going to bother with him, I don't think the people that are going to take it that way, take it literally and think he's a religious fundamentalist or a religious nut job. I don't think they're going to be reading him anyway. I think you've got to have a certain understanding of his viewpoint and where he's coming from and the method he's using in order to even buy and read that book in the first place, I think.
No, that totally makes sense. I'm just wondering how, how much he can grow his audience to and sway people to his way of thinking. But that's kind of a naive, just saying that people can be swayed when they're that indoctrinated into their own liberal religion.
Just to answer that, go look at his book sales. He's doing okay.
No,
But sure. Aaron, there's some validity to your point, because half of this podcast will shut down if you start talking religion. Rich, it's you and me.
What do you mean?
Like you start bringing religion into something, I'm out. See ya. It's just.
I mean, it depends on if we're talking about it. I understand what you're trying to say, Chris. I don't know if I'm that extreme about it. I don't like people go, "Oh, you're an atheist." No. I've said this a million fucking times. Stop looking at me the way and trying to fit me into your box, because your mind is so simple. It only works a few ways. I'm a hopeful agnostic. I hope there's something bigger out there. Do I believe that any 3 books from the Desert Trilogy, the Torah, the Quran, or the Bible somehow got it right? No. There's over 2,000 religions that are acknowledged on this planet, and you're going to tell me that just by virtue of your parents shoved this book in your face at a young age, that you found the true one? That, the odds of that?
Well, the problem is that people are taking it literally. They're not seeing it as a collected work of collected human wisdom put into storybook form. Bedtime stories.
Because the problem is really religious people, just like really, the ideologues in the extreme left or right, you let dogma dictate what you do. You don't have logic or reason.
Right.
It's just like, well, this is how it's supposed to be, and this is what's going to happen. Yeah. Because I was told. And that's always been my rub with religion and religious people.
Where it crosses a line with me is when an example is I dated a girl whose family damn near cult-like religious. Okay? And all they would say is, we're Christians. They would never say a denomination. We're Christians.
Right.
And they were the type who, and I saw this with my own eyes, I talked to these people, and I realized how fucked in the head these people were, and it scared the shit out of me, and it made me go, I can't deal with, now this is where I'll agree with Chris. This is where I said, I can't deal with this, I'm out. One of the church members' husband had been convicted and was serving a very long prison sentence for molesting 3 of his 5 children, including videotaping it and passing it around and distributing it. And the wife wouldn't divorce him because divorce is against God.
Yeah.
And I said, what are you going to do when he gets out of prison? What are you going to do when your children, okay, your daughter was 13 when he was locked up. What are you going to do when your daughter comes home with a child and he gets out? You going to let that fucking scumbag around your fucking grandchild because you were told that divorce is against God? So divorce is a worse sin than fucking a child? Fucking your own child? Making your children fuck and videotaping it and passing it around to other fucking scumbags? Divorce is worse than that?
Is it incest in the Bible?
I'm sorry, say again?
Incest is in the Bible, isn't it?
Yeah, we all
there was
supposedly came from
only
the
Adam
same
and
2
Eve.
people. So
Right.
some brothers
We
and
wouldn't be
sisters had
here.
to fuck somewhere if you believe that story.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, but it blew my mind. And then in the next breath, she would say, no sin is greater than any other sin. All sin makes God weep for us. And Jesus came here to absolve everybody of all sin. And I'm like, so if I steal toilet paper from work, you're telling me in your God's eyes, that's the same as me fucking my child.
It's supposed to be
age of
cardinal
4.
sins and venial sins. But
Well,
then again,
that's
I
the
guess that's
Catholics.
Catholic too. Yeah.
Yeah. Catholics threw in that whole purgatory thing, kind of. One thing I gotta give the Catholic Church, y'all motherfuckers, if you didn't invent the loophole, you perfected it. Seriously, you're like only the mafia could have come from Catholicism. That's all I'm gonna say.
You can tie that into what you were just talking about, that sort of batshit, just blind fundamentalism, and you can take that and you can apply it directly right back to ideology. You can take the furthest left-leaning nut job, and they will do the same thing. They will apply the doctrine, and they will preach it, and they will just completely ignore all common sense reasons and logic in the meantime.
I will give you.
I'll
give you a recent example. 2016 Hillary Clinton. I am the woman's candidate. Well, you protected a rapist.
Right.
Not even protect. You actually put a hit squad out on any woman who came forward and accused your husband of rape. And this is the Kool-Aid drinkers on the left. Anytime I'd say that, they'd go, Bill Clinton isn't running for president. As if somehow fuck me silly with a boomerang. That just absolves
That changes everything.
doesn't it?
He is applying to move back into the White House, however. He may not be running. He's going to live there.
Is it wrong that I didn't want Hillary necessarily, but I kind of wanted, like, Bill Clinton to be the first husband? That would be an awesome sitcom. Him running around the White
Yes.
Hey, Hillary, don't you have to go out of state? And
That's
just a
comedy.
trail of hose coming in.
Yeah, that's a Comedy Central show right there. I have to believe that was in the works prior to the election.
Well, remember the show That's My Bush?
Oh, yeah, it was great.
It
Love that
lasted
show.
for like 4 episodes. 9/11 happened, and they said, we can't have this anymore.
Right. Yeah.
This is horrible. We can't make fun of the president in this time of mourning for the country. Fuck that. Yeah. When he took ecstasy and was fucking doing the glow sticks and shit in that one, and I think it was the last episode they ever aired, I was about pissing myself, man. That was fucking hilarious.
Well, to put a bow on this IDW thing that we were talking about before, if I'm really actively working to try to be a little more productive with this stuff, with the stuff I'm coming up with the ideas and the insights and the thoughts and stuff on all this. And I mentioned, I think last week or whenever it was, not last week, but it was whenever I mentioned I saw this sort of burgeoning sort of movement. I was like, well, what the fuck is this tumor in my head? I think you guys call it hope. That's what I'm seeing. Because there may be enough people out there who are just getting entirely sick and tired of this and are looking desperately, eagerly, starving, parched for actual conversation, real dialogue, discourse from people who are not firmly encamped inside of that liberal cathedral. And I think it's out there. I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that I spent a couple of days on Twitter. I found Quillette, followed some breadcrumb trails, and found a whole bunch of fucking people, enough where I thought that I would come on this show and mention it and use the H word in that context.
Todd, I'm with you, because I'm starting to see something that I've been waiting for, which is not the attitude of, oh my God, would everybody just, would you two extremes shut up? Yeah. You're annoying. It's gotten to the point where people are now going, no, fuck that.
Yep.
All right. Daddy's home.
Yep.
Go to your fucking rooms, get your shit in order. And when I calm down, I'm going to come in there and decide whether I'm going to take the belt off or I'm going to fucking bore you for an hour. But Daddy's home. Enough of this bullshit. It's people wanting to move forward and work together. That is really what the intellectual dark web is, folks. And once again, Todd, like you pointed out, just like we all four fall at different spots on the political spectrum, these people are from all over the political spectrum as well.
Did I mischaracterize you guys at all when I was pointing that out?
I wouldn't say so. I mean,
the only thing I bristle about libertarianism is that, I'm sorry, I don't watch Mad Max and go, oh, look, a world without regulations and the free market runs it.
And to tell you, Todd, the conservatives won't have me because I'm pro-choice and I hate religion.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So, but I think it's really interesting. We don't really go at each other's throats ideologically. We all do fall on different fundamental places on that grid. I'm still leaning to the left a little bit. You wouldn't know it listening to me. You sure as fuck wouldn't know. And that's another thing that I've noticed about these IDW writers, is that almost all of their ire is for the left. I've done that independent of these guys. Before I even knew they existed, I've been having the same tendencies in my own stuff. And I think it's because, at least we've talked about this before, from my aspect, it's because I expect more out of liberals. I expect more from the resistance to Donald fucking Trump than this.
Yeah.
And I'm pissed off that I'm not getting it.
There's that, and there's also the fact that these were a lot of the people who, if you go to that web page that you sent the link to, you know, they have the little, you can click on the links and it introduces them and gives a short bio. A lot of those people were firmly entrenched in the left, in academia, in thought, and they were expelled from the left by the fucking, the Kool-Aid drinking zealots. And
now they hang out with Ben Shapiro.
But I mean, I really don't know how to feel about him. He makes good points, and sometimes I'm like, dude, just shut up, just go sit down. But that's another subject we'll save for.
But that's perfect. That's fucking perfect. That is perfect. Who do you agree with on everything with anyway?
I don't even agree with myself on everything. You should see the guilt I go through after I jerk off to some of the porn I look at.
Yeah, I don't want to hear. Anyway,
I don't feel good. Gangbang girl 34 is in my fucking search history, you know. But
if you're finding people that you agree with everything on, you're reading from a fucking Bible of some sort, or you're looking in the fucking mirror. That's the only way you should be agreeing with everyone on everything. If you are, and you're surrounding yourself with people that you agree with everything on, there's something fucking wrong with you.
See, I think we're far past the point for a lot of time on this podcast, at least me, myself. I can't speak for Chris and Aaron or Jay, really. I mean, because he was on here when I started going through this. I was obsessed with the why. Why are we like this? Why are we like this? It's to the point where the why doesn't matter anymore. We are now looking at two generations who have grown up who don't respect things like free speech, don't respect individual rights. They want to play the identity politics game. That's the only game they know. And for whatever reason, that's just what they are. And and here's a little pearl of wisdom I picked up in the rooms back in the day. But, you know, the Serenity Prayer. I can't change them. It doesn't matter why they are the way they are. It's time to fucking work towards solutions.
Right. Yeah.
And if they're going to be a problem and present themselves as a problem, then we'll deal with them then. Because if the massive amount of people who have no faith in the far left and the far right would get together and work together and do that horrible C word, that not centrist, compromise.
Yeah.
We would actually get farther. Here's the bitch of this. Just like Fight Club. When they went to the fucking, the bougie ass party and they caught the guy in the bathroom and said, we're the ones who wash your clothes. We're the ones who feed you. We're the ones who guard you in your sleep. Mm-hmm. You need us. We don't need you. We don't need these fucking wackos on the far ends. We can move forward. We just have to fucking start ignoring them like the fucking emotional children they are, throwing temper tantrums. Well, and I hate to say it, but this podcast gives them way too much of a fucking platform sometimes because we are obsessed with them.
No, I don't think we are. And I will disagree with you on one key aspect of that. I think it does matter why. I think it matters a great deal why. Because I think that I'm a perfect example of this. If you would have met me, or if we had been in contact a year ago, say February, I was firmly entrenched in the resistance camp. If you can believe that. I'm sure you probably can. After some of the conversations we had in 2014, I was just abhorred by the fact that we elected Trump. And I was willing to go to the marches. I photographed most of them. I went down there mostly for the photography, but I was glad to be there. I was glad to see people standing up to him. I was redeemable. And part of the reason that I was, and the part of the reason that I was able to sort of extract myself from that camp was somebody pointed something out to me, very, very simple, and had to do with the Rachel Maddow show. Maddow, I have to pronounce her name right. The Rachel Maddow show back a year ago in March. Won't go into the whole thing, but it got me to look at the bullshit. One piece of bullshit that she put out on her show one night. And it was just like a light bulb went off. I'm pretty well versed in propaganda. I'm pretty well versed in a lot of the psychological tactics. I'm, pretty well read guy. I could draw on the education that I gave myself once upon a time, and it suddenly dawned on me a lightning bolt went off. Maybe Thor was throwing a fucking lightning bolt at me, however you want to look at it, but it went off that I had been hijacked. That I had hijacked myself slowly over the course of time and gotten away from what I really believe and what my roots were. So if that works for me and it worked on me to this degree, it will work on a lot of other people. They're not irredeemable. A lot of them are. I'm not kidding myself here. A lot of them are. There are a lot of David Koreshes out there that are willing to burn up the compound, but a lot of them aren't. I think a lot of them are redeemable. They just need to understand what's happening to them. And then if you can get those folks, you can bring them over to the middle, and you can get into the compromise camp. Then you've got a movement.
I think that's a lot easier said than done. I think that'll work with people our age. I'm not too sure about the younger people. They've just been brought up in these extreme environments.
It doesn't matter.
The beauty of younger people is they have to get older at some point,
and they will. The 60s turned into the 80s, man.
Exactly. The hippies became yuppies. Hey, just remember the epic line from SLC Punk. Son, I didn't sell out. I bought in.
Right.
And and it does. Look, I don't want to exile entire groups of people from moving forward in progress. But you yourself, the Dennis Doctrine, I can't drown with you, dude. I
totally believe in that. I totally still believe in that. I'm not preaching against that, but you got to hold your hand out first for the Dennis Doctrine to take effect. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You guys are both right, Chris. I totally agree with you. A lot of people you're not fucking Jesus. You're not the ideological Jesus here. You're not coming to save anybody. You can't save anybody that doesn't want to save themselves. But you can point things out. Give them the tools to do the work themselves. And, Rich, like you said, if they don't want to do the work, if they don't want to take your hand, they don't want to see it, they don't want to use their own legs, their own intellect, they don't want to de-zombify themselves, then fuck them.
There's certain words I look for when I'm having conversations with people that tell me that I'm basically I'm going to be doing the equivalent of pulling teeth in the middle of a conversation. And that is never, as in I will never change my mind no matter what. When I hear something along those lines or those exact words, I realize at this point in time, talking to this person is beating my head against a brick wall. All Absolutely. I'm going to do is piss myself off. Yeah. All I can do is go, well, I guess we see things differently. Have a nice one.
Right. Yeah.
That's all you can do.
That's the core of my beef with religion, too, is I can't have a conversation with somebody who thinks they have the ultimate truth.
Right.
Monique's been on this show, so I'm comfortable naming her. I work with Monique. And every once in a while, when we're really slow, we'll start into these political, philosophical conversations. And I'll bring up points And, you guys remember, she's 18. And she'll stop, and you can almost like see, like if you could see into her head, you could see everything working. And she goes, I never thought of it that way. And I tell her, I'm like, I'm not expecting you to see the world as I see it. I'm not expecting you to agree with me 100%. I do expect you to think. I do expect you to question things, to turn it over and see things from more than just head on. If I just look at the front of a book and I never look at the back of it, I can't tell you what that book looks like. And it's the people who won't turn the fucking book over that I go, there's nothing I can do for you, man. There's nothing I can do for you.
Open the fucking book, Jesus.
Yeah, and that dogmatic thinking, I mean, it goes back to what I was saying earlier. I'll repeat it, the John Stuart Mill stuff from On Liberty, that you can listen to people. If you're actually listening and considering what someone's saying, instead of waiting to talk and waiting to interject or intellectually rape somebody, inseminate your doctrine into them, if you're doing more than that and you're actually engaging in verbal intercourse with somebody, don't laugh, then you can actually learn something. You may actually come across something, learn a nugget of something that you can take and say, yeah, I actually agree with that. I may not agree with everything you said, but how can I take that? Okay, I'll take that point. How do I integrate that into the tapestry or the mural that I'm painting over here? You just added something to it instead of just rejecting everything out of hand. And you're doing yourself a disservice if the truth is actually your point and actually your destination or getting as close to it as you can. You're doing yourself a huge disservice by not listening to other people you disagree with.
How can you refute a point that you didn't even listen to?
Right. And how do you give yourself an opportunity to learn something you never thought of if you're not listening to another person who may have that information for you?
Yeah.
It's a completely, it's almost a selfish act to have that conversation with someone.
Well, the latest conversation Monique and I had was about, because it's been a hot subject, obviously, because we've dropped this term 5-6 times in the show alone, is toxic masculinity. And I asked her to describe it. And she described a whole set of behaviors. And outside of a few, rape, things like that.
Things that are just illegal.
Yeah, I was like, what you're describing is toxic behavior that could come from anybody. Right. Even the gender, even the Tumblr 56, 78, whatever it is, genders. It's just toxic behavior. You're assigning it masculinity because you've been taught that that's the enemy there.
Right.
And here's the deal. If masculinity is so toxic, why do so many hardcore feminists strive to emulate it? If it's so toxic, why aren't feminists wanting everybody to walk around like fucking June Cleaver?
Right.
And just be wonderful and cook and bake and everybody's happy and everything's peaceful and mom doesn't care if dad drinks and my son's gay. I just want to have a nice dinner once a day. And we tell each other about our day and we act like everything's okay. Yeah, and I said, if you really want to get down to it, that's toxic. That's toxic itself. That's ignoring problems.
Yeah.
And she went, I've never thought about it that way. And I said, and I'm going to add a cherry on top for you. If I come at you and say, and I did that, I did this like a year ago. I said, that's your female privilege talking. She literally jumped up out of her seat and was like, there's no such thing. I said, do you remember that? And she goes, uh-huh. I said, now think about that. How much did you bristle at me using that term? She goes, a lot. I said, right. It's a divisive term. It's a term that is there simply to antagonize you. Yep. To set you at odds from me. That's what male privilege, white privilege, all these terms. Yes, they are rooted in truth, but they're misnomers and they're divisive terms that have been carefully selected by people to keep us at each other's throats. And we're never going to fucking get anywhere like that. And she didn't say anything to that. And then we picked up business. So we had to stop talking. But
no.
Yes, the ridiculousness of this
change
whole
her mind
idea.
right there on the spot. Her feminist beliefs faded away.
No, it's not a
they
movie.
Said,
it's not a
Mr.
movie.
Stark, I don't feel so good.
No, but the one thing that she may have taken away from that is the ridiculousness of this whole notion of unity via division. Because out of the other side of their mouth, typically, these folks are talking about coming together and how we have to unify and diversity is going to bring us together as a nation and all this other. How do you do that? By dividing everybody up into different camps. I mean, you can't have. You can't sit there and think about that. You can't actually have an intellectually authentic conversation with yourself, an internal narrative on that topic without coming to that conclusion and that question. And I don't know of anybody on that side of the aisle, or spectrum anyway, in that camp, in that cathedral over there, the Kale Cathedral, that is really trying to explain to themselves or anybody else how you get unity via division.
Yeah, Todd, I've been screaming that for years. Tell me how further separating us is going to bring us together.
Well, it's the same.
No one ever gives me an answer.
It's the group of people who go, I don't want to call it mankind, it's people kind. But yet they want to divide everybody up by race, religion, sex, gender, how you present your gender or your sex, any number of things. And you're talking out of both sides of your mouth. You can't have it both ways. You can't try to say in one breath, I want to call us people kind, not mankind, because it'll unite us. Because if that was their only point, I would acquiesce to the petty fucking bullshit of, okay, it's people power. It's not man power. It's people power. Okay, whatever. But that's not it. Because in the next breath, they're going to talk about, and you as a cis white male, right. And it's like,
and
do you see what you just did? You just said, you did the equivalent of, I'm not racist. I love all spics. That's the equivalent of what you just did.
I'm waiting for them to take the word man out of human. That's going to be next.
Well, this is nothing new, but there are some very hardcore online groups that won't even spell women WOMAN. It's WY or what? No, WOMYN. Woman.
Oh yeah,
woman.
I might be engaged to somebody like that. Just putting that
I
out
thought that was like a half hawk, half woman, or some kind of mythical creature.
It's a liger.
Well, there's some sort of mythical creature, all right. I don't think the hawk would appreciate being lumped in there with those things.
But I ultimately, Todd, I having once again our online adventures seem to fucking match up, even though like they like there's some sort of synchronicity there, even though we really don't know it until we get on the show and start talking about it. When a few weeks ago, maybe even longer than that, when you said you had to rethink Twitter, I haven't dipped my toe into that dark side yet. They haven't offered me the cookies. That's when I go. But I started looking I'm like, where's Todd seeing all this hope? Because this motherfucker's more pessimistic than I am. And I went looking and I was like, I do see a glimmer of it. I'm like the guy that's been burned in every relationship, and you meet the girl and it's just like,
have you heard of Quillette?
Who's at the door? Love.
Twitter's not a dark side. It's sorry,
no. But it's like you're sitting there and the door knocks. You're like, who is it? Love. I'm not letting you in. You fucked me over 10 times. Come on, I wouldn't lie to you 11 times in a row, fuckhead. Let me in. Try it. And it's like,
I know you've heard of it now because I've been posting and sharing this stuff a lot in the last month or two. But Quillette, had you heard of it before?
Yes, I didn't do the deep dive you went into in it, but it's a lot of the groups I'm in on Facebook. I see a lot of articles posted from them. So it was like Big Think. I haven't gone through the Big Think website.
Yeah.
You went through that motherfucker with a fine tooth comb and started pulling out articles that I missed. Yeah. So but I didn't do a deep as dive as you did.
I didn't go to their website until today. All of that stuff that I was getting was from Twitter. So okay. I was completely wrong about it. It's all in, again, I have to go back to our conversation in November. It's how you use it. I don't make a lot of comments. I don't have a lot of people following me. I don't solicit that. I go to read. I go to find people who have things to say that I want to hear.
Twitter's a public pool. Like you have to know that somebody has peed in it, and you just don't open your mouth when you go underwater.
Yeah. Unless you're into that type of thing.
Yeah. I'll tell you, it's a lot less incestuous. A lot less incestuous than Facebook.
Yeah, I'm starting to prefer it.
Yeah, I far prefer it. I only have Facebook because I want to be able to I hate the fucking the character limit on here. And I like to have private conversations that aren't going to be infiltrated by people I don't know. That's what Facebook's good for.
But you just hit the number.
But people can still follow us on Facebook, right?
Yeah.
He says segueing into an outro.
And Twitter.
And on Twitter, at Unregimented Pod, yes.
Yeah. But
Instagram, even though we've never used it once.
Wait, you guys have an Instagram?
It's for this show, it's... You want to run it, go ahead.
I want your Twitter account, actually. But
it's just in a week, it'll be nothing but Todd's dick pics. all sent to Anna Kendrick.
Take the unregimented Twitter.
Like that. I got pictures of it. Never mind. I'm not going to say. Anyway, before we go off the deep end here, I do want to say one thing, that I think that this podcast, when we're talking about the intellectual dark web and this sort of gurgling movement, we've been doing this for a long time. And I think that's exactly where we belong. If you want to categorize this, we're an obscure, dusty little unpopulated outpost on the fringes of the internet compared to a lot of these people. But that is where I think we're characterized as far as what we're doing, both on this show and when I resurrect mine. That's exactly, I was so relieved to find other people.
I'll take it.
A lot of
We're a dark web podcast.
Yeah, I think we are.
A dark cast.
Yeah, we're not afraid to talk about this shit. And we've talked a lot about a lot of things that if you were to go on somebody else's show, a left or right leaning show, that there's no way in hell that it would fly. And I want to congratulate you guys for that. You were doing this before I was here.
Sure.
That's why, actually, the reason I'm here is because you were. I started listening to you guys again last fall, and I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah.
Well,
so
I think
anyway,
that was the idea.
Yeah, well,
even a blind nut a blind squirrel finds a nut every once in a while.
Yeah, we can have conversations about this because and we're not going to do it on the show, but I'll give it a little tease publicly. But this show, if you want to take it pro, we can talk about that at some other point. But I think there's a market. I think there is a starving market for it, and I think we're at the very beginning. It's almost like getting in on like a .com kind of thing. That I think that I'm holding out hope, and I'm very optimistic. I think there are enough people out there. I think that it's going to continue to move this direction, and I hope to God I'm right, and I hope to God that these fringe elements are put back in the little box in the zoo where they belong, and we can start having real conversations again. Yeah. And I think we're moving in the right direction, at least on this little tiny example. I think we're helping move things in that direction, I think. So I commend you guys. You did you've done very, very well with this podcast in the last few years before I jumped back on board here. So I don't know how you
call me a cocksucker or a faggot or something. I don't take compliments well. Insult me. That way I can be like, okay, I can take the compliment.
Why the fuck are you always interrupting me, you fucking cunt?
There you go.
Better?
Yeah. There you go. Well, the show on that note. Thanks for listening, everybody. Check us out every Saturday at ChristopherMedia.net. There's a whole bunch of other podcasts there, too, that you should check out. And,
EscapingTheCave.com.
There you go. And, Rich, Rich, you got a new podcast coming. You want to plug it?
Yeah. It's Nighttime Discussions with Ryan Rich. It's oh God, I don't want to say no holds barred, but it's a no topic, no taboo topic when it comes to sex, relationships, kink, whatever. We're hoping that it's going to be a lot more of an interactive podcast. It's not going to be for everybody. I'm going to tell you that right now.
How do you mean?
So if you take a listen and you go, that's a little too far into the kink world. I didn't want to know about that stuff. Yeah, not in a bad way. But
how interactive is it going to be, and how?
Right now, we're
that created.
Can I send you a picture of my dick?
I can't unsee.
Not that interactive yet.
Send me a picture of your dick.
My co-host was talking about he wanted to do like live streaming of video sometimes. So if he brings in any toys or anything, and I'm like, I mean, that's cool, but he was talking about doing it on Twitch, and I'm like, we would get thrown off Twitch in about 5 minutes, dude. The minute you brought in the big old dragon dildo you own, it'd be over with. And I mean, so it all depends, but I'm not sure when it's going to drop. We have 2 episodes in the can. We're finishing them up. And it's probably going to, once we get into the groove, it's going to be a probably twice a month podcast. So
cool. Well, yeah. All right. The network expanding, guys. Great show. Thanks for listening, everybody, and we'll catch you next week.
See ya.
Bye.
See, Todd, I let you say goodbye without interrupting you. Later, guys.
If you like this show, please tell a friend. Please follow us on Twitter and like and share us on Facebook by searching for Christopher Media. You can subscribe to all ChristopherMedia.net shows for free on ChristopherMedia.net. Please make sure to rate and comment on all your favorite Christopher Media shows. Thank you in advance for supporting Christopher Media by clicking on the PayPal button and by clicking through to all the sponsors who support ChristopherMedia.net. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net, and thank you for listening. Thank you for visiting ChristopherMedia.net.
For the ones who know that a little late is always too late, and that the clock doesn't stop just because you're missing a part, Grainger offers supplies and solutions for every industry. And our Keep Stock inventory management solutions help ensure you have the right stuff in the right place at exactly the right time. Visit Grainger.com/keepstock to learn more. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
At Jewelers Mutual, we're a little obsessed with jewelry. Obsessed like auctioneers with talking fast.
50, we're gonna have sold.
Pop stars with auto-tune.
Yeah.
And dentists with asking questions.
So, how did he propose?
After they've put their hands in your mouth.
Great.
Yes, we've made jewelry our obsession for over 100 years. We love it so much we named our kids Ruby, Amber, and Opal.
Venti soy latte for Opal?
At Jewelers Mutual, we insure jewelry and only jewelry, which is why people who are also obsessed with jewelry trust us with theirs.